Good evening, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to the Two Mikes. Coming up tonight, we're going to find out what's wrong with the nation's teeth, why we seem to have more lords than we need, and whether watermelon seeds are really the only thing to eat to keep yourself healthy. It's also Ask Porky tonight as well, the one place where you can get answers to those questions that have been bugging you for years. And I'll be asking Porky what he's been doing all day as well, because of course, this story has come out that if you tell too many porky pies, you might end up behind bars. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry. Darkness is descending upon the great country of Great Britain, so it's time to say a very good evening to Mr. Mike Porky Parry.
Very good evening, Mike. What do you mean darkness is descending?
Well, I've just looked out the window and it's dark. You know, last night it wasn't so dark.
It's a few minutes past 7.
Yeah, but
it does get dark, you know.
No, but the nights are drawing in, is my point.
Yeah, but
that means the summer is well and truly over.
It's not, though.
It's time to get yourself into autumnal mood.
It's not, because we've got an investigation into the weather. The humidity at the moment.
What do you mean an investigation?
Well, the humidity is unbelievable.
It is actually very unlike Britain.
At the moment, there are grey clouds in the sky.
Yeah.
It's dark. It is. I totally agree with you. We're on the precipice, or we're about to enter the cusp of autumn.
Yes.
Leaves are starting to fall off the trees, and it is so hot, you might as well be in the Amazon jungle.
It is very, very, very muggy.
It's unnatural.
Yeah.
Now, you add that to the fact that, you know, when you're trying to make your way into TalkSport Towers tonight, and you suddenly find that the trains have stopped again, because apparently they can't get their act together again. That is the Southern management.
The striking goes ahead.
And the strike's going ahead, and there's going to be trouble tomorrow, and all this makes you feel rather down in the mouth.
It does, actually.
I'm proposing that I might get you involved in a bit of bladderation after the show tonight.
That's a very good idea. I think that's the only way forward. Because the problem is, right, if there's a proper strike and you know that you can't get on the train, that's fine.
Make other arrangements.
But if there isn't, and you just don't know whether the train's ever going to run, I mean, that was why I ended up buying a car. I told you this, because, I mean, there was never a strike affecting South Eastern, but it became so unpredictable as to when you could get from point A to point B.
Yes.
I had some bad news today as well, and you may not have known about this, but do you realise that on October the 1st, and I don't wish to sound too London-centric here, they're going to shut Tower Bridge for 3 months. 3 months.
Why? To repair it?
They need to repair it. They need to work on the mechanism.
Is bad news.
They need to make. But it's not just bad news. It's catastrophic news.
Catastrophic news.
Because I'll tell you why it's catastrophic news. Because guess what? Tower Bridge dissects.
It dissects East and West London.
Well, it doesn't actually, no, but it dissects where I lived and where I work.
Yeah, well, I don't care about that.
Well, you should care about it, because I might not be able to get in here.
No, I care for the greater populace of London.
I might have to buy a boat, you know.
No, you won't buy a boat. You can get a boat up and down the Thames anyway.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
What's it called? The Clipper?
It's called the Clipper.
Yeah, and I get it quite a lot.
You don't ever get the Clipper.
I did.
When was the last time you got the Clipper?
When I went up to Canary Wharf.
Yeah.
And I got on at Blackfriars Pier, would it be?
Which
is only across the bridge from where we are here.
It doesn't stop there very often, though.
Well, it does if it's a request stop.
No, it's not a request stop.
It is.
Don't be ridiculous.
No, it is.
What, do you think you stick your hand out and the boat goes...
No.
Comes over to you?
No, when you buy your ticket, you buy it on the premise it's going to stop at Blackfriars.
Yeah, but very few of them stop there.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
I'm very sure about it. I use that service all the time.
OK, well, you can go further down then to the House of Commons type one, Westminster Pier.
You can't go all the way to Westminster Pier, no. The furthest west you can go is the London Eye, and it's on the wrong side of the river.
Well, if you get off at the London Eye, you're very close to here.
Yeah, well, you are, but you're not close enough.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. You moan too much.
I can give you the entire litany of stops that it goes on.
I don't care.
But
neither do millions of our listeners, because they don't actually think that the River Thames is the greatest route to get to work, and neither do I. So, I'd pipe down.
OK, all right. Well, since you've told us one lie already, since you've got on, you've just already started lying since you started being on the show.
Excuse me, I'd rather resent that.
I use the Clipper service all the time.
Yes.
You've been unable to tell us exactly when you used it.
I went to Canary Wharf, and
you didn't say when.
Eh?
You didn't say when.
I think it was last Christmas.
It was not last Christmas. It was about 4 years ago.
No, it wasn't.
Yes,
Anyway, look, get on with it. Get on with it.
Anyway, my point is this. Con men who lie about having won military medals could face jail under a private member's bill that was being discussed in Parliament today.
Absolute disgrace, and they should.
And you're absolutely right, because people who try to claim that they did something in the military when they didn't.
Totally agree.
But, I mean, all that struck me when I read this story was it's absolutely all about you. It talks about people, the phenomenon of Walter Mitty fraudsters, right? Who feign military careers or exaggerate their service.
Well, you see them all the time.
And they say it's going on all the time. But, I mean, this is what you've made a career out of. You know, you claim to have been...
I've never claimed to be in the army.
No, you never claimed to be in the army, because you wouldn't be that daft, but you have claimed to have been the captain of the King's School Chester football team.
I was.
You claimed to play for England Grammar School.
I did.
You claimed to be the communications director of the Football Association.
There's evidence on that. There's plenty of evidence. In fact, only today, or only yesterday...
Hang on.
Somebody posted a bit of video with me and Mr. Cantona at the famous hearing.
That doesn't prove that you were the head of communications. You told me yesterday that you were already presumably answerable to somebody else, David Davis, wasn't it?
No. David Davis had an executive position.
What was his job?
He was something like, head
of communications.
No, executive director of operations.
Is that
It
right?
had nothing to do with my department. Nothing.
And then you claimed that you've met Joan Collins, even though you've never seen the picture. You claimed that you know personally Bill Clinton. You've got a picture we've never seen. You've also claimed to have been. What was the other thing you claimed to have been?
What?
The news supremo of the Daily Express.
Yes, I was. Yeah.
No, you weren't.
Hang on, if you're the news editor of any newspaper...
You're the news editor.
You're the news supremo.
No, you're not.
I never took any note.
Did you
know
have
what
a
they used to
business
do?
card that said news supremo?
No. Well, not supremo, obviously, but it said news editor. But
yeah, exactly.
you know what sometimes they try to do? They try to foist, like, somebody called, quotes, assistant editor, brackets news on you, right?
Well, that's what they do when they promote your previous boss.
That's right, yeah. Well, I tell you what happened.
Isn't that what you ended up being, assistant editor, brackets news?
That was about 4 weeks before I got the boot, actually. so that, I knew the road was running short.
Yeah.
But no, quite seriously, they tried that twice with me. Once was Bernard Trimsley, who had been editor, by the way, very successfully, of the Liverpool Post and Echo when he was a younger man. And then, I think, successively, News of the World. He was editor of The Sun for a while. He was editor of the Mail on Sunday. He was the founding editor of the Mail on Sunday. And then, because the way it works in Fleet Street is that when the editor of the Daily Express became Sir Nicholas Lloyd, who used to be a protégé of Bernard Trimsley, Bernard Trimsley in his dotage was then employed by Nick Lloyd as an assistant editor, brackets news. He did nothing.
It's very much like politics, isn't it?
Absolutely, he did nothing. So I remember one night in conference, one evening, 4 o'clock conference to decide what we're going to put in the paper. All Bernard did was sit there and literally ripped to shreds everything I had on my news schedule, you know.
And didn't you think that he was doing that for a reason?
And when I got down to about the 8th, I said, Bernard, I said, this is the 8th story, which you say is no good. He said, well, Michael, you know, very thin day. We seem to have a long way to go. And I said, right, give me half a dozen stories, please, to replace the ones I've just read to you. And he said, well, I said, give me half a dozen stories. He said, you want to sit there and rip apart my news list? That's fine. But you haven't got a single idea in your head. You're a washed-up, useless, has-been...
You see, this is why you were fired.
Yeah. No good executive. And you're only here because he, and I pointed to the editor, Sir Nicholas Lloyd, actually, I said, has taken pity on you and your dotage and he's given you an office round there and you do nothing. So if I were you, I'd keep your mouth shut in my company in future. Do you understand?
This is why you were such a cantankerous person to get along with.
Well, why should you have to put up with that? The other guy...
Well, because there are other ways of doing it. I mean, you can be slightly more charming and completely, kill the guy.
You get stressed out in the job. Now, the other guy who tried to do it was who was that midget political guy? Chris Buckland. Chris Buckland.
Well, I don't think it's fair to call him a midget.
He was a midget.
He was short of stature.
And he actually used to wear Cuban heels.
He did indeed.
He used to wear Cuban heels. And
I'll tell you another story about him as well.
No, we won't because it's a family show. Okay.
Also, I mean, I don't know whether Chris is still around.
He was discovered in rather strange...
hang on. Yeah. I don't know whether he's still around.
Well, he might be. I don't know.
Well, we don't want to start...
All right, no, definitely not. You said you can tell me the story. I'm sure it was very positive.
Well, I would have done if you hadn't named him.
Oh, yeah, I see, yeah. But anyway, so all of a sudden, Chris is appointed assistant editor of Brackets News, and he comes from the Commons. So he sends me this very pompous note, about, dear Michael, after sitting in morning conference and looking at your news schedule, could I make some observations, And like on every story, I made an observation. Yeah. So anyway, it was a big A4 sheet of paper. So I screwed it all up, into like the shape of a ping pong ball, and I put it back in the envelope, and I wrote on it a rude word, and told my secretary to take it back to him, So then later in the day, I was in the editor's office about something else completely, and he came in and he was virtually crying, and he said, "Oh, Nick, I tried to help out, and look what he did." Right. And Nick said, "What's your problem, Chris?" He said, "Look, I tried to be constructive and helpful," and he took the ping pong ball, and the problem was, Nick just burst into laughter. Just said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Chris."
I'll try that again.
Yeah, he won't try that
exactly.
One.
Well, have you seen the time, by the way? We're already running.
Hey, did you know that TV Wyatt Earp star has died? I didn't even know that.
I didn't know that. No.
Wyatt Earp, who was played by...
Don't tell me now.
Hugh O'Brien.
Hugh O'Brien. Household name.
What a name.
Yeah, Hugh O'Brien. Well, anyway, listen, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. We've got lots to talk about. House of Lords as well. Keith Baz has resigned, of course, not before time.
Yeah, exactly.
And also a bit of a security problem down at City Airport. This is the two mics. We are the Two Mics. We've got lots to talk about coming up tonight. It's also Ask Porky, of course, the one place where you can get an answer to some of those pesky questions that you've never known the answers to or never been able to get anywhere else. Could be a personal matter, could be a financial matter, it could be something to do with just the world at large.
Indeed.
Or just general knowledge, because Porky's here to help and he will answer any questions coming up in the next hour. I'll tell you a question you might not be able to answer. Is why on earth is the House of Lords still expanding at a rate of knots when we keep hearing that the House of Commons is going to be cut back to less and less MPs?
I think it's an absolute outrage because it seems to me, in very simplistic matters, that every time a new government comes in, and the trend over the last sort of 30 years has been for not one-term governments, but 2 or 3-term governments, what they seem to want to do is then overturn the majority in the House of Lords in their benefit. Right. So they appoint up to sort of 400 new members of the House of Lords. Right. And there's only 600 seats, and there's about 1,200 Lords.
I think if they all turned up at the same time, they wouldn't all be able to sit down. But let's talk to Katie Ghosh, who's Chief Executive of the Electoral Reform Society, and find out whether she thinks that there are too many of them. Katie, very good evening to you.
Hello, good evening.
Okay, thank you very much. It does seem as though when we talk about the, the kind of reduction in size of the House of Commons, and there's been a lot of talk about that lately, they're going to be reducing even more seats and doing a bit more gerrymandering, as some people would call it. But meanwhile, the House of Lords just continues to grow, it's seemingly at an unstoppable rate.
It's absolutely ridiculous. It's a super-sized chamber, the largest upper house in the world outside of China. Right. And I think you've hit the nail on the head when you said the numbers keep going up because every single government, every single Prime Minister, it's an incentive for them to put some of their own peers in the House of Lords, and also perhaps rewards are given for people. There's actually a lot of former politicians are put in there. It's so size matters, and we're really pleased that the new leader in the House of Lords, Lord Fowler, has said, look, it is a problem and we do need to sort it out. But at the Electoral Reform Society, we also think these people should be elected. They are making laws that affect each and every one of us, so we think it should be smaller. There should be fewer of them, and we also think they should be elected by the British public.
Because, I mean, there can be no doubt. I mean, let's talk about something that's in the news at the moment. Keith Vaz, right, he's resigned now from this Home Affairs Select Committee. He may or may not get deselected at the next election for whatever reason. Say, for example, he lost his seat. You could guarantee under the current system he would be made a Lord.
Well, I don't think there are any guarantees, to be fair, about who is put in the Lords. So not every MP gets in there. Having said that, a very large number of peers have been in politics and public life, and that is an issue because sometimes it's presented as being an independent place, and that's not to say there aren't independent-minded people in there, but it's a myth that somehow it's completely different from the House of Commons in that you never have politicians going in there. You have people who've donated to parties who end up in there, and you have a lot of ex-politicians as well. And we just think the time has come to slim it down and, crucially, to have an elected second chamber.
Yeah, no, I so agree with you there, Katie. I just can't understand how it got, past people like John Major, who said he was a man of the people. He said, I didn't go to Oxford or Cambridge. I was a grammar school boy. I worked my way up and all that. Why, as Prime Minister, did he allow the Lords to mushroom like it did? And, for instance, take somebody who's in our business, Lord Daniel Finkelstein, who is a columnist with The Times, OK? Now, I'm sure he's a very nice man, and I'm sure he's very intelligent.
He is a very nice man.
He is, and I'm sure he's contributed a lot to the British way of life. But what I'm saying is, what is the purpose of the House of Lords? Because it seems to me it's only to give people rewards and make them feel good by being member of a very exclusive club.
I think it does have a purpose. The purpose is supposed to be part of our whole parliament and government system, and to keep a check on the government and to do legislative scrutiny and go through all of that, with a fine-tooth comb and end up with better laws and better decisions. But the problem is that without the legitimacy that you get from being elected, and with this problem of size, which just makes it an absurdity, a kind of democratic anachronism, the problem is I think that damages its reputation, and until that's sorted out, I don't think people are really going to have faith in it.
Don't we think, Katie, that people turn up at the Lords, or maybe they don't even turn up, to sign in, they get £350 daily allowance, that's their pocket money for, floating around London or staying in the Lord's bar and drinking subsidised booze or something like that. I mean, it's a racket, isn't it? Let's face it, it's a racket.
There isn't, I think, one of the things when I talk to people about this that really shocks them is that there is a job that is being a lawmaker where you can turn up and claim £300 tax-free, regardless of how much time you spend there. Yeah. And no one else has a job like that. And I think that is one of the things that people feel shocking. Now, some people go and they spend hours and hours and hours and they treat it as a full-time job in a very proper way. Others don't. But nonetheless, I think the rules and the setup really shock people when they hear about it.
Well, they do. And I mean, what Lord Fowler is saying, who's a new speaker, is that there should be a cut of up to sort of 200. Now, there's around about 800 there at the moment. That would still leave 600 people in there, which would be massive. But he's got no kind of idea, or so far as we know,
how do you get rid of them?
He's got no plan as to how to get rid of 200. What are you going to say? Like, they did it, they got rid of the hereditary peers, but now there's more of them than ever.
That's right, and that's why, although I'm really pleased that Lord Fowler has said size is an issue and we need to tackle it, you can't look at it on its own, as you say. You can't just say, well, we want to cut it down to size. That's why what we're saying is look at the whole picture, come up with a new system. You can have a transition period, so you don't just get rid of people, you don't downsize it overnight, but you have to have a proper plan. And it's sad that the parties haven't been able to work together on this. There's very strong public support for moving away from the current system to a smaller, more effective, efficient House of Lords, and crucially one that's elected.
Isn't the other point, Katie, you said that they do have a political purpose, and OK, I accept within the British Constitution they do. But it seems,
the Chamber does. I'm not sure a lot of them
Well,
do.
this is what I'm just about to say. The thing is, Kate, it seems to me they only jump in on political legislation when they get a bee in the bonnet about things that affect them. So they can effectively block legislation. I mean, for instance, Lords who've come there after service in Europe, like Lord Kinnock, OK, he knows that if he in any way votes or speaks up against European anti-legislation, he loses his pension in that he takes from Europe. I mean, there are so many vested interests amongst the people who are there.
I think that one of the other issues is the backgrounds of people who are in the House of Lords, and most are London and South East. There's no representation of our diverse country, all corners of it.
What about good old Lord Prescott of Hull?
Yes. I'm not saying there's nobody there who's not from another part of the country, but when you look at where they're from, what their background is, they're not representative at all. Very much dominated by older people as well, so we don't have a good mix of ages. So I think if you're thinking about when people look at politics and public life and they look at their institutions, they don't necessarily want them to be a carbon copy of society, but they do expect them to be broadly reflective.
But what's your organisation's sort of strategy on how to get this changed? I mean, you want an elected body. I think a lot of people would agree with that. But where do you start, and how long will it take?
Well, that's a very good question, because we thought we were nearly there when the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives were working in coalition together. It came very close. There was a bill. It was going through. It got completely mired in the politics of the day. And sadly, some politicians, I think, who still don't embrace the principle of having an elected second chamber, got completely bogged down, and the law was never passed. So all the groundwork has been done. I don't think we need to spend any more time. There's been countless committees who've looked at the details of how you could make the transition from an appointed to an elected House of Lords. Now what we need is the political. We spend a lot of time campaigning both to raise public awareness and have the public support there, and also working across the parties with the politicians who do want reform to happen.
OK, excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Well, Katie, good luck with it, and you can certainly count us as two reformers, I think, on this front. So if you need any help, you know where to go.
Yeah, well, we're going to campaign against privilege. We don't believe in it.
Well, I don't believe in it, but you do. Katie, thank you very much indeed. Katie Ghost there, Chief Executive of the Electoral Reform Society.
Damn disgrace.
You are an absolute, complete and utter turncoat.
What do you mean?
You love privilege. You'd like to be part of privilege, and you would love to be a member of the House of Lords.
No, I would never join the House of Lords.
Of course
never.
you would.
Look,
that's exactly what you would do.
My old mate, now deceased, the Duke of Westminster. I mean,
he was not your old mate.
He was the chairman.
I should have a bell every time you come out with one of these.
Sorry, he was the chairman of the Board of Governors at the King's School, Chester.
Oh yeah, where you played captain for the football team, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And what I was going to say is, of course, people like him from the aristocracy, the rich landlords of this country, landowners, I should say.
Well, what about his son who's taking over?
Yeah, well, he's only 25.
Well, why aren't you cozying up to him?
Well, hang on, Katie just said that we don't have a broad range of ages, so it's good that he's going as 25.
Oh, you
think
that's a good thing?
Of course it is, to bring
how
a new
is he
perspective.
representative of anybody in the electoral sort of area of London or anywhere else?
Well, because he owns about 1/3 of London, so...
So what does he know about it?
Well, he's got to go there and give his youthful view.
He just sees London as a massive cash cow.
No. He's got to give his youthful view. You're very cynical about
Not at all. A friend of mine is in the House of Lords, actually.
Oh, who's
and
that?
I've been to the House of Lords. I'm going to tell you who it is.
So it's not Daniel Finkelstein?
It's not Daniel Finkelstein, no, it's somebody else.
I can't work out how Daniel Finkelstein got in.
He did work for the Tories. No, he worked for the Tories.
He worked for the Tories, and he wrote a football column in the Times.
Was he not a speechwriter for somebody?
He was a speechwriter, I think, for David Cameron. And then he wrote a column on sort of current affairs and stuff. Then he wrote a column which was whimsy, and I think he's a great writer.
He is.
Great sailor.
He is.
But then
he's a very intelligent guy.
Yeah,
I'd rather have somebody like him in there than the Duke of Westminster's son, who happens to have inherited half of Britain.
Oh, you see, that's just your envy and malice coming through.
It's nothing to do with envy and malice, but Daniel Finkelstein's had
what
a
do you
proper
think
job.
What about your friend, Baroness Bra?
Baroness Michelle Mone.
Yes,
well, she's more representative.
In
she's more representative, and I rather resent the fact that you refer to her as Baroness Bra.
Well, she is. That's
her
what
name
she's known as.
Is Baroness Mone. Actually.
Yeah, she made her fortune. Her business.
This is a woman who you should
reputation.
admire because she came from a very humble background.
Okay, that's
made
good.
a great success of her life and her business.
That's good.
And some people are always firing brickbats at her and saying that her business is not the way she describes it, etc. But she knows far more about work and ordinary life in Britain than the guy who's just inherited half of it.
I have no doubt.
Well, so I think I've answered your question.
You haven't answered my question. I just think that
I go along with Katie Ghosh, who wants an elected second chamber. That's what I want.
I agree with that, and I want it representative. However, it should only be half of it should be elected, and half of it should be like the Duke of Westminster type people.
No, they shouldn't be in there.
No, they should because
neither should the bishops either. By the way,
they are the historical fabric of this country.
Well, it's time to move on.
They go right the way back to William the Conqueror.
I don't care.
And we've got to have we must have representation. We must have representation of our ancestry and our history, and that's where it should be in the House of Lords.
All right.
50% of it, the other 50% should be elected.
That wouldn't work at all. Absolute nonsense. Neil says this: I saw the footage of Cantona and Parry today. It looked like Porky was just holding the door open for everybody.
Well,
and
I'm
Robbie
just being
says
polite.
It's also time to clamp down on lying cheats who claim 1 week they got 7 A levels and the next 6.
I've never claimed that. I got 4 A levels, but I got 14 O levels. Okay.
14.
Yes, 14.
Well, you've never been able to name the number.
I have.
I've
run through them all.
You ran out at about 7.
I didn't.
Anyway, we're out of time again because you keep rabbiting on about privilege and how pleased you are that people who have been given a silver spoon to live their lives with are so much to be admired. We are the Two Mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. Ask Porky coming up, of course, as well. But I'll tell you what, today, in the wake of that ridiculous demonstration down at City Airport.
Wasn't it shocking?
You know what I saw? I was out today just driving around. I had to go and buy some dog food, actually.
Dog
a couple
food?
of dog treats.
How much?
Yeah.
How much?
I buy a big bag of it, and it's easier if I buy it because it's a very heavy bag to carry. So
Hang on, your dog lives in Sussex.
Yeah, I know, but he needs more food.
What are you doing buying the dog food or being carting it down to Sussex? Don't they sell dog food in Sussex?
Well, they do sell it, yeah, but it's easier actually for me to buy it up here because there's the particular store that I go to where they sell. I mean, it's a massive bag. It costs like 56 quid, right?
What is it? Win-A-Lot?
It's not Win-A-Lot. No, I'm not going to give out the name. But it is a well-known brand of quite expensive dog food.
Really?
And I always go to this one shop. It's like a sort of pet superstore type shop. Yeah. And there's one within about a 10-minute drive of my house in London.
Okay.
Whereas the one in Sussex is much further away. So it makes more sense for me to chuck it in the back of the car. I'm going down there on Thursday night anyway, right?
This is good, because I can tell you something.
What?
This is interesting.
What are you going to tell me?
What I'm going to tell you was, down in Stockbroker Belt, where my sister lives, I went to the family thing on Sunday.
Oh, yeah. Did they have the automatic awning out, by the way? I meant to ask you yesterday.
We didn't go outside, actually, because it was raining.
No.
It was raining on Sunday.
Well, why not have the automatic awning and sit underneath it?
No, because it's not a very pleasant atmosphere.
I can't blame them for that.
We had roast dinner inside.
You had lamb, didn't you?
Did
you have lamb?
Lamb, yeah. Now, what I was going to say was, and Kingswood is the home of a lot of Premier League footballers.
Is it? Right.
And in fact, I don't think Danny Murphy will mind me saying he lives locally as well and all this kind of stuff.
Well, he probably will, actually.
Well,
you don't start telling people where everybody lives.
It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
Doesn't matter. Anyway, the point of my story...
security thing.
The point of my story is, right... there's been a bit of development in the village lately. You know,
the village?
Yeah, they built some new executive flats and all that.
Oh, yeah.
But on the ground floor...
Of course they're executive flats, aren't they? Why can't they just not be flats? Why does everything have to have a sort of ridiculous prefix?
On the ground floor, right, a footballer took out a lease
right.
on the ground floor premises of the block of executive flats and opened a gym.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, what? So what, he bought I mean, that was for purpose. Was it purpose built for a gym?
No, it was purpose built for retail outlets.
Okay.
And he knocked them all together.
Okay.
And opened a big gym.
Oh, I see.
Right. So and the
Has he got his name on the gym?
Well, no, he didn't put his name to it. He was the investor in it, but
Okay.
he didn't name himself. But he's a famous footballer.
Okay.
And lives down there, and he did this anyway. After about 3 months, nobody is using the gym.
Oh, dear.
I mean, like nobody.
Right.
And so I think footballers obviously have somewhere to train and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. They're not going to need it, and the local people didn't seem cared.
Yeah.
So guess what? They've just applied for planning permission to turn it into.
It's not going to be a gym. I would say some kind of.
Well, it relates to something you've just been talking about.
Oh, what, like a pet grooming
A
centre?
pet supermarket and grooming.
Oh, right, okay.
You're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
right.
They're going to turn.
Well, they'll make money out of that.
Well, precisely.
Yeah.
Because all you ever see when you go down there are people walking dogs.
Yeah.
And they're not the owners of the dogs, they're dog walkers
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff.
Although I have to say, I've never put my dog in for a grooming session.
No,
I'm not
no.
sure he'd need it. Or
Well, the
want
sort
it.
of money that floats around in those parts of
Yeah.
the world, I think I'll be very successful.
I probably will.
I think it was a very
It
wise
probably will.
decision.
And also, lots of people have pets. I mean, I was
Yeah.
saying just earlier, there was somebody on the bus coming in today when I was on my way in, carrying a cage which was covered, but it looked like a hamster cage.
Yeah.
And I think she had a hamster in it.
Well, do you know what? I was reading some of my journals this morning, and apparently more and more psychologists and psychiatrists are recommending that people actually take up ownership of a pet.
Yeah.
But
Well, I've often recommended to you that you should get a pet, because it would keep you company for one thing.
No, including things like snakes. They think the snakes apparently are very wily creatures, and they stimulate your brain to such an extent.
Wily.
Yeah, you know,
Slippery.
well, not so much slippery in the sense that they're unpredictable.
Have you ever held a snake?
Have you
ever held a snake?
No,
Why not?
and I wouldn't.
Well, you're frightened of them. You are, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yeah,
You're frightened of
yeah.
snakes?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, I am. Yeah,
Why?
hate snakes.
Really?
The famous quote here. Remember when I worked on that show with Andy Townsend? We used to have a film reviewer every Sunday morning.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know. And he came in and he said, yeah, and so what have we got today? We got this great new film, Andy. It's called Snakes on Aeroplanes.
Snakes on a plane, yeah.
And Andy said, oh, what's that about then?
Well, it is an unusual title for a film. And
Yeah.
it is about snakes on a plane, obviously.
Here, listen to this.
Go on.
Right. Any dog lover will tell you they're Bichon Frise. Is that a dog?
It's a type of dog, yeah.
Okay, Bichon Frise. Or a St. Bernard.
Yeah.
Makes them smile.
Or St. Bernard, as they call it in America.
St. Bernard.
Yeah.
But get this. But the NHS is also increasingly turning to animals to help relieve a number of medical conditions.
Well, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Here, from anxiety to Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And it's not just dogs. Here in Britain, skunks.
Skunks?
God, yeah. Skunks.
You can't get skunks in Britain.
Well, it says here you can. Skunks are being used to calm schizophrenia patients.
Really?
Snakes are helping those with bipolar disorder.
Okay.
And chinchillas are prompting memories in people with dementia.
Really?
Actually helping them to recover some of their memory, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think interaction with animals is one of the greatest things you can actually do.
Don't autistic children sometimes benefit
Sometimes,
from,
yeah, they do.
from mixing? Yeah,
They do.
Anyway, it goes on to say the scheme is called Animal Assisted Therapy, or AAT. Qualified trainers take animals into hospital wards and care homes to interact with the patients. Just last week, a study of 643 parents by the Centers for Disease Control in the US, that's a US report.
That's in Atlanta, isn't it?
It is actually, yeah. You're absolutely right, yeah. Reported that children with pet dogs had a decreased probability of childhood anxiety. Well, I can see that. You can see if a kid's got a little puppy as its best friend or something like that, that would be very sort of comforting, wouldn't it?
But also, I mean, there's so many reasons, and you often talk about this when you know those stories about the dog that's worked out that its owner might have had cancer.
Yes,
and, you know,
that's
I mean,
right,
there's a certain bond that you get with an animal, which can either be a dog or a rabbit or even a hamster. You know, and it's a wonderful thing. And when you see kids playing with pets,
that's right.
You know, you can tell that they're working out exactly what their emotions are and exactly how their kind of relationships are going to be. It's terrific.
Yeah. Well, the issue of pets and all that kind of stuff was highlighted in a story I read yesterday that a woman who was grieving because her sister had died thinks that her dog, who was actually a Doberman Pinscher, who are supposed to have sort of like a reputation for being rather aggressive.
Well, they are, yeah.
Understood her grief and was doing things like going into the kitchen and bringing her tea bags and all this kind of stuff, you know what I mean? To indicate, can I do anything to help? But listen to this one here about the skunks. Obviously, this is an American report. Different animals are suited to different conditions. Patients with paranoid schizophrenia often like skunks because they are the same size and shape as a cat, but they will not jump immediately off your lap and further damage your self-esteem.
Right.
So that's what cats do. If cats leap off your lap...
Cats are a little bit more selfish than dogs, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But, I mean, you'd have to be quite unwell, I suppose, if you took that as a personal insult.
Well, it says here, you can stroke a skunk, which releases endorphins and distracts schizophrenia patients from the voices in their head.
But wouldn't you be worried that the skunk would actually, shoot out their stuff? They do.
I mean,
I've never ever been sprayed by a skunk.
No, neither have I.
But I mean, I know I've certainly I know people whose cars have hit skunks and they've had to sell the car.
Really?
Because you never get rid of the smell.
Well, the thing is that is a defensive. It's a natural defensive ploy, isn't it, to ward off.
But you
predators.
literally can't get rid of the smell.
Well, I would say I wouldn't want a skunk in my house, would you?
No.
I mean, you wouldn't, because if skunks do...
Well, it's a wild animal.
That's what I mean, yeah.
It's not domesticated.
Yeah,
but I've often said to you should get a pet. Even if you didn't get a dog,
Yeah.
which you'd have to walk, why not get a parrot or something? You can talk to it.
The trouble with parrots is that they like a bit of attention as well. And
what's wrong with giving it... That's my point. You would give it attention. It would give you attention.
Yeah, but I mean, OK, so I come and do a show with you. The poor old parrot's left at home for 5 or 6 hours.
5 or 6 hours is OK.
Are you sure?
For a parrot, yeah.
Can a parrot live in a cage?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Or can you let the parrot fly around your apartment?
You could let him out every now and again, but you could basically be happy in a cage, yeah.
Would he?
Yeah. You just get quite a big cage.
Yeah, I suppose it's worth thinking about.
I think you should.
I think it's a bit messy. I mean, unfortunately,
your housekeeper could take care of the cleaning of the cage.
Well, maybe.
Or get some fish, maybe.
Fish is not a bad idea. Fish, I suppose you can.
That's quite calming. You can sit and look at the fish.
I'd love a dog, but I mean, you can't really have a dog with a roof garden.
And also, you do too much travelling, and you're not there enough for the time.
Exactly.
And a dog would not be practical. But I think you could definitely do with it. You can get a parrot or something like some fish, because you can leave fish. I mean, when we went to Mallorca, we left the fish for 2 weeks,
right?
And you can feed them this particular. You get a feeder which basically feeds them over the time that you're away.
That's what I mean. So every day it releases food into the water,
and we came back and the fish were fine.
Yeah, trouble is if that goes wrong, you starve your fish to death, don't you? You know what I mean?
There's no point worrying about that.
You've got to worry about it.
See that story about the cat, by the way? Lost cat travelled 60 miles from North London inside the engine of a removal van.
Yeah, I saw that.
His name's Sparky.
That happened to me once. I'll tell you what happened once.
What do you mean it happened to you?
Well, what happened was...
You got trapped inside the bonnet of a car?
No, I was moving from one house to another, but I wasn't selling the house I was leaving, and I was moving into an apartment, right? And I packed up all the stuff from the house, and when I got to the other place, which was about, I would say, 6 miles away, as I opened the back door of my car to get stuff out, a cat leapt out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I thought, what? Now, that poor cat had leapt into the car at the last address, 6 miles away.
Right.
So
was it somebody's cat or was it stray?
It was somebody's cat.
Oh, right.
I think it was somebody's cat.
So did you have to take it back then?
Well, it disappeared. So I kidnapped somebody's cat, and to this day,
that's terrible.
To this day, they might be thinking, whatever happened to Tabby? You know what I mean, or whatever.
Shocking.
All those years ago.
One of our ex-colleagues actually had a story like that, but he was moving from one house to another because he was being kicked out of it by his missus, who wasn't very happy.
Oh, he'd been misbehaving.
Something had been going on,
Something you're very familiar with.
Well, many people are familiar with it. You're not unfamiliar with it, are you?
I'm not familiar with it.
Given the number of married women even involved.
No.
But anyway, that's another story. But he didn't know that the cat was in the car either, but it was his own cat. And he was driving down the motorway from somewhere like Birmingham to London to be reunited in a new house with somebody else.
Right.
And while he was driving down the motorway, the cat leapt on him from the back seat.
Okay.
And jumped on his shoulder.
Yes.
And you can imagine the shock.
Yeah, exactly.
In the middle of the night, driving. And he didn't know what to do on a motorway, doing 80 miles an hour.
Didn't crash or anything.
Well, he very nearly did. Yeah. But he had to try and pull over and try and somehow do something with the cat because it wasn't in a cage. Well, because he couldn't have it jumping around and leaping on him.
Well, he should have just, smacked it on the head or something and just told it to sit in the passenger seat or something like that.
Just told it to sit in the passenger seat.
Indicated, Well, the way you control...
can't tell a cat to do anything.
The way you control pets is you let them know who the boss is from a very, very early stage of the relationship.
Using violence?
No, I'm not talking about using violence. You can grab a cat by the scruff of its neck. That's where the expression "the scruff of your neck" comes from.
Not while you're driving.
Yes, you can. You can drive with one hand on the wheel. You grab the cat with the other. You shake it in front of your face to indicate you're angry.
Right.
And then you throw it into
Meanwhile, it is cutting you to ribbons with its very sharp claws.
You throw it into the footwell of the passenger seat and you tell it to stay there.
Yeah, well, good luck
Don't
with
worry,
that.
it wouldn't get past me.
Maybe we'll try and reenact that and see how well you do.
Yeah.
Anyway, we run out of time again because you keep blathering on. And I still didn't even get to finish the story I was going to tell you at the start of that point,
go on.
which was about the helicopters I saw. But I'm going to tell you about that next. We are the Two Mites. Got lots of tweets coming. You can tweet us, of course, at the Two Mites, and that's where you can send your questions for Ask Porky, which is coming up in the next hour as well. We'll also be talking about teeth coming up a little bit later on as well. Here's one from Robbie who says, I pay £90 for my 2 dogs every 6 weeks to be groomed at a large, well-known pet store. It's not bad, is it?
Well, that's pretty good, because you see dogs sometimes and the hair's too long. It's clearly too long. Now, for instance, if I did have a dog, Labrador's hair doesn't grow much, does it?
Labrador's hair, no, short. Well, it's a short-haired dog, basically.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Whereas,
although he does molt quite a lot. I mean, the back of my car is covered in his hair.
Okay,
and
that's all right.
It's a nightmare to try and get it out.
As long as you know it's his hair, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Now, what I was going to say is, you take a spaniel, and it would be a nightmare trying to keep a spaniel's
or a golden retriever
trying to keep their coat in shape.
I mean, you have to brush it. I mean, you brush the Labrador. Well, he quite likes being brushed. Actually. He'd be brushed once in a while.
Yeah.
But basically, I mean, if you've got a long-haired dog, you have to get it groomed, I think.
Well, not only that, if you go out in the wet in the winter and you're running through a park or a field or something like that, it gets very mucky, doesn't it?
It does.
Exactly.
Although they've got a very interesting way of cleaning themselves. I don't know how they do it, because sometimes my dog will, there's a bit of there's some very muddy places we can take him sometimes. He'll come back and be completely covered in mud.
Yeah.
But somehow, unless it's really horrible stuff, like he's rolled in some fox stuff or something like that, you basically let him, he just kind of cleans himself, and after about an hour, he's all clean.
Really?
And I've never actually seen him cleaning himself.
Oh, okay.
But somehow it happens.
Do you not spray him down before you take him back into the house?
No. Some people have you can buy these blankets.
Yes.
Which you wrap the dog up in. It's like a zipper thing, and you to put them back in the car.
Yeah.
To stop them from making the car very muddy.
I see.
And it's like it zips all the way up around his neck.
Yes.
Basically, so his entire body is inside it.
Yeah.
But I think if you're going to have a dog, you've got to accept that there's going to be a bit of muddy car
you
scenario.
just put covers on the back seat, don't you?
Well, I put him in the back of the car anyway.
Yeah. I see. You got like a cage thing.
Well, no, I haven't got a cage, but I mean, I've got the old Mercedes with the 4x4. It's got a big trunk. It's got a big boot.
You put him in the boot.
Yeah.
No.
Why not? Well, it's not a boot. It's a hatchback thing,
Oh, I see. Yeah, but doesn't he jump over the back seat?
No.
No,
he doesn't.
Why?
Well, because he's well trained.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, fine. Excuse me.
You're right.
I'm going to choke there.
Anyway, let me finish my story.
Air conditioning. Yeah, tell us about these helicopters.
I was driving back from having gone to get all this dog stuff, right? And
this £56.
Yeah, although I had a £12 discount voucher which I used.
Right. Okay.
So it was only actually 48.
Okay.
Or something like that. Sorry, no, 44.
Mm-hmm.
And but I bought a few treats as well. It's about 50 quid I spent.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what was also interesting. It's the place where this particular shop is. It's a sort of retail park, if you like.
Yes.
Just off the old Kent Road.
I know.
And there's a B&Q there as well.
Right.
And there's a couple of other stores. There's a Halfords as well, I think.
Yeah.
Now, the car park there used to always be full of what I'm not going to be unkind in describing them as Eastern European workers.
Yes.
Who would obviously stand around there waiting to be picked up to be taken on various jobs,
to
right?
some building site or something. Yeah.
And as time has gone on, there's been more and more and more of them.
Mm.
And it's not that you would say that they were in any way menacing, but I mean, I'm sure if you were a woman on your own and you saw a sort of collection of men standing about in a car park, it's not great. Anyway, today when I went there for the first time, they've got security people now on the car park entrance.
Right.
And they're keeping them all outside the gates. So something must have happened. I don't know what the...
Maybe just the numbers have got uncontrollable or something like that, yeah?
So anyway, I'm driving back, and suddenly I look up into the sky as I'm coming back I can see Canary Wharf, and it's just over there.
Shouldn't you be looking at the road rather than the sky when you're driving?
I look at the sky, at the road, I look at everything. I look into my mirrors, I check, what the other traffic's doing. I'm only doing about 20 miles an hour, because that's all you're allowed to do now, driving in London.
You're still worried about low-flying helicopters, yeah?
Well, I suddenly saw these 2 helicopters, right, military helicopters, flying in formation, right next to each other, away from Canary Wharf back up to London.
Were they Chinooks?
Well, no, they weren't Chinooks. They were double rotored ones. And I thought, I'm going to open the window to see what kind of noise these things are making. Do you know how much noise they made?
No.
None.
Really?
They were making no noise.
So what's your interpretation?
Well, my belief is that they're these kind of stealth helicopters.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, they were flying very low.
You're talking about Apache?
Well, I don't know. They look
Apache
like
attack helicopter.
They looked like they could be attack helicopters, but they were very low in the sky, and you couldn't hear them. I found it fascinating.
Well, that's because you can hear helicopters.
I mean, helicopters go up and down the river all the time.
Not only do they go up and down the river, they fly over my penthouse all the time because they come from. There's a helicopter heliport at Red Hill.
Battersea
at Battersea, yeah, but Red Hill as well. And Red Hill's just the other side of the M25.
Right.
I mean, they take off from there all the time.
Right.
And also, remember, Gatwick Airport is only 20 miles as the crow flies from me.
As the crow flies?
Yeah, and you get helicopters coming in and out of there all the time.
And commercial helicopters make a lot of noise. Chinooks make an awful lot of noise.
Chinooks make a terrific amount of noise.
And there's meant to be some kind of SAS base somewhere down the Canary Wharf.
That's
down
right,
somewhere.
Yeah.
But these things were very sinister to me.
It is
because you couldn't. They had nothing. You know how the wheels fold up on these things, right? So you're just seeing basically these two things flying information very close to each other, making absolutely not a sound.
Old Prince Harry could have been flying one because he's qualified to do so.
Well, he might have been, yeah. I don't know. That wasn't my first thought. My first thought was it something to do with this ridiculous demonstration at City Airport?
Well, maybe.
Where incredibly, in this day and age, people were able to swim basically across the water.
Well, they've got a dinghy.
Yeah, but they were swimming as well, some of them, across the water and get onto the runway.
Climb on the runway and then just stop.
What kind of security are we talking about here?
Just a pathetic protest, honestly. It turns people against you. Now, something nice happened to me last night on the way home.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's nice.
Now, do you
meet
remember
somebody on the train?
No, but do you remember I berated you because when we were struggling to get here after coming back from Edinburgh, I pointed out that you still had time to stop for a Cornish pasty.
Well, I didn't have time to stop for a Cornish pasty. It took no time at all.
Yeah. Now, what was the name of that company? Is it the West Cornish Pasty Company?
Something like that, yeah.
Is it?
Why do you need to give the name out?
Well, because I'm going to praise them.
Well, there's a couple of them.
Yeah,
there are. They've got similar names.
They have. So I'm not sure which one it was.
Yeah.
But I think it was the West Cornish Pasty or whatever.
Right.
And this is at Clapham Junction, which is Britain's biggest.
What were you doing there?
Well, I was on the way home.
But why were you getting off there, though?
Well, because I went from
Waterloo. Change trains?
Yeah, Waterloo to Clapham Junction, then I get...
Yeah, that's a bit of a headache, isn't it?
No, because they're literally on parallel platforms.
Why do you live somewhere so inaccessible?
No, I don't. They're parallel...
inaccessible, even.
They're parallel platforms, and then I go straight down, in like 15 minutes to Stockbroker Belt. You see what I mean?
So you go first class?
No, there's no need at that time of night. I just go in first class anyway.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me.
Right.
Yeah.
So you just sat with the proles?
No, I go in first class.
Oh,
You're
you do?
absolutely right, yeah.
Well, you didn't buy a first class ticket?
No, of course not. And if anybody comes and says you shouldn't pay now, so well, how much is the upgrade? And I'll just pay it, so I couldn't care less.
Well, you might get fined one of these days.
Well, I doubt it. Anyway, so, funny enough, because you and I had a bit of discussion to do last night after the show.
That's right.
It was probably the last train, something like that. So I get to Clapham Junction. Which is massively underdeveloped considering it's Britain's biggest commuter railway station.
Yeah.
In the sense it hasn't even got a pub.
Right.
Most stations...
Not on the platform,
No. Most stations in London, all stations in London, Victoria...
Yeah, but not on the platform, though.
Well, on the concourse they have, right? Now, there's a huge sort of, walkway across the top of Clapham Junction because it goes over like 24 platforms. Right. You'd have think by now some entrepreneur would have come along and said, "This is." I mean, the footfall is incredible.
Well, but most people are on their way home or on their way to work. They're not looking for a drink.
We can always find time for a quick drink on the way home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, but in the last couple of years, they've actually let concessions start trading there. Yeah. Like just small things like newspaper shops, the coffee shops,
pasty
and all that.
Places.
And the last place is the pasty place. Right. So anyway, as I'm moving from one platform to the other, I pass the pasty guy, and he's just closing up.
Right.
And I said, "Oh, hello, mate." I said, "Look, really sorry to bother you. I've got time to just buy a quick pasty to eat on my train down to
in my stolen first class seat."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And there's hardly anybody around. He said, "Yes, of course, sir. Of course, this is very good."
Right.
So
you should have given you a discount when you were selling off last night's
No, hang on.
You've only got about a minute, by the way.
Okay. So he said, "Of course, sir." He said, "And what do you like?" I said, "Well,
where's he from?
I don't know. I didn't ask him.
Neither do I.
He spoke like that. He spoke like that. Yeah. I said, "Have you got a traditional like Cornish pasty? That's what I really like. Big meaty one." "Oh, of course, sir." So he says, "Here we are." So he gives me that. He said, "Sir, because you're a good customer, I'm giving you free sausage roll."
Chinese now, this guy.
No.
Free sausage roll.
Free sausage roll.
Right.
But it was a huge sausage roll. It was about a foot long.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. I said, "Well," he said, "No, you must take it, please. You must take it."
Very generous of him.
So I got a pasty, I got a free sausage roll, it's marvellous.
But haven't you said before that you hate people who eat hot food on trains?
Well, yeah, but there was nobody on the train. It was so late.
So that's all right then.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't matter. And anyway, I deliberately distanced myself from anybody else so as not to serve them. And by the way, it wasn't even hot food at this stage. Right. It was just warm.
So you give me a hard time for eating rubbish, right?
Yeah.
In a place when I needed to have something to eat to do a show.
Yes,
You're on the way home and you're eating a cold sausage roll, a foot long, and an old pasty that's been there all day.
No, it wasn't. It was the last pasty of the night. And he said, "Very fresh," he said, "last pasty of the night."
Very fresh.
And I said, "Thank you very much
indeed." Of course.
But I love acts of generosity. When people give me things, I feel great about them.
Oh, good.
I think it's fantastic.
Well, I'm going to give you a warning now because it's time to stop talking. Good evening, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to the Two Mikes. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be doing Ask Porky, so if you haven't had a question sorted out by Mr. Parry yet, now's the time to get it done. You can tweet us at the Two Mikes, of course, or at Mike Parry 8 or at IROMG. We're also going to be talking nutrition, because apparently watermelon seeds are the new hot superfood.
Yeah.
I don't fancy eating them at all. I quite like watermelon, but I usually take the seeds out. To be honest, you're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry. Now, there's rather an unfortunate message here from somebody calling himself Toby. He's very rude. He says, "Oi, Parry, just heard your rant about flip-flops. I wear them when I get gout." And he says, "Let's hope you get gout one day. Then you try and get your clumpy Velcro trainers on your swollen toe."
Well, that's very nice, isn't it?
Very
Thank
nice,
you very
is it?
much. He wants me to suffer pain and agony.
Yeah.
Listen, pal.
Apparently, that's one of the most painful things you can ever have is gout.
Oh, of course it is, yeah. Mickey, our mate, our photographer mate in New York, had it, didn't he?
He used to get it, yeah.
Used to struggle across the dance floor, Studio 54, believe it or not. Sorry, what was the name of that correspondent?
Toby.
Well, Toby, all I can say is this, mate. I'm really sorry you get gout, and of course there are exceptions to the rule, and of course you should be allowed to wear flip-flops. Can I just say that gout is actually a crystallisation of the blood in your joints between...
It's the crystallisation of it's folic. What is it? Some kind of acid that kills.
Yeah, it's folic acid. Crystallises in the joints between your bones, but it's all blood-related.
But it's not crystallised blood, though, I don't think.
No, it is blood-related, honestly. Yeah, it is, yeah. And all I'd say is that if you're using your big toe and the toe next to it to wrap yourself around the one piece of plastic that attaches a flip-flop to your foot, I don't think you're doing yourself any good. You should be wearing like fluffy slippers or something like that, which don't hurt you.
Yeah,
but
or those ones that we saw, where the fastening goes over the top of the foot,
exactly,
as opposed to between your toes.
Exactly.
Johnny says this: last night you asked why you would need a doctor of philosophy in various topics, but it just means PhD rather than about philosophy.
Yeah.
Well, Johnny, I think you're wrong about that, because I mean that would just be a PhD. Doctor of Philosophy was a specific award that they were giving out at the University College London yesterday, and there was very few people getting them, but they were getting Doctor of Philosophy in a particular thing.
Well, because they were philosophers.
Well, no, but they were.
That's what I mean.
Doctor of Philosophy in things like public policy.
Yeah, exactly.
Doctor of Philosophy in politics.
Yeah, but it's all what a load of bolloxio. You know, philosophy is just the most ridiculous, made-up, nonsensical
you said all that
subject
last
in
night.
the world.
There's no point in repeating
No,
yourself.
no.
Michael says this: "Hey lads, has anybody heard from the bog cleaner from Pencoed?
No, we haven't,
It
actually.
seems to have vanished from the face of the earth."
Oh, is that Derek?
Yeah, Derek. Yeah.
Yeah, what
Derek
did he
from
say?
Pencoed.
It's Pencoed.
Pencoed, you plonker.
Pencoed, you plonker.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't heard from him.
Yeah, we
I hope
haven't.
he hasn't died. I hope you haven't died, Derek.
Yeah.
You know, you're
Johnny
a
says
great
it's
listener.
it's uric acid, not blood. You plank.
Oh, uric acid. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Now then, do you remember?
Why are you making a strange sound?
Well, on this very station, like last week or the week before, we invited into the studio a very old friend of ours called John McEntee.
That's right.
And John has written a book called "I'm Not One to Gossip, But," and it's got some great reviews, and that's why we invited him in to talk about it.
Yes.
And of course, he was, as usual, entertaining self.
All about his life in Fleet Street.
Yes. However,
What?
I have to take issue with the boy.
What, you're going to have a go at him now that he's not here?
Yeah.
Well, that's not right.
Yeah.
You should have done this when he was here.
Yeah. Now, listen.
You know, he's supposed to be a friend of ours. He
Well-
said that, why don't we go out for a drink sometime?
Yes.
And you're going to stitch him up now?
Well, no, I'm going to refer to a piece of his book which he didn't tell us about, which I wasn't aware of because I hadn't read it from cover to cover, which actually, I'm afraid, I think it's a disgrace to journalism.
Why?
I'm going to read it
All
to
right,
you.
tell us what happened.
I'm going to read it to you, and frankly, I'm shocked, and it doesn't do us any good. Anyway, it says here, so the book has been reviewed by Richard Ingrams.
Yes.
And Richard Ingrams, of course, was the founding editor of Private Eye,
He was
wasn't
indeed, yeah.
But I mean...
And then he was at the Oldie for a while, I think, wasn't he?
Exactly, and I don't think it's unkind to say probably more left-wing than right-wing, and...
Probably. He was a fantastic... When he ran Private Eye was brilliant.
It was.
I
think they uncovered the Anthony Crosland scandal and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? It was a great pioneering...
Well, Jeremy Thorpe, wasn't it?
Jeremy Thorpe came to trial, didn't it? So I think that was really that wasn't.
Yeah,
a
but I think it all
story.
started there, though, didn't it?
It may have done. It may have done. I don't. You may be
dog
right.
shooting.
Yeah. It could well be right. Yeah. Anyway, listen to this. McEntee, that's John, who was in here with us, a very amiable Irishman. McEntee is not a man who will sacrifice all his finer qualities for the sake of a good story. While working for a national newspaper, he had what most colleagues would have called a sensational scoop, when in April 1984, Tommy Cooper collapsed and died on the stage of a West End theatre.
I remember that well.
Do you know Alan Brazil was in the audience
Yes,
that
I
night?
do remember that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, he said that.
And Tommy Cooper's feet appeared below the curtain. Everybody thought it was part of the joke.
Yeah. I know. Well, I think there's a film of it, which you can see.
Is there?
Because occasionally they would film these shows,
That's
not necessarily for broadcast, and it's. I mean, you can tell the audience think it's all part of the act.
That's right. Yeah.
Shocking.
Anyway, so McEntee was one of a gang of journalists sent to interview the widow at her Chiswick home, only to be rebuffed on the doorstep by a Filipino maid.
Right.
The Canio booze then retreated to a nearby pub. Then, once again, filled with liquor, he returned to the Cooper residence carrying an enormous bouquet of flowers.
Ah.
Everybody else had gone.
Yes.
The sight of the flowers and the rubicund features of the beaming McEntee, is rubicund mean like red face?
Yes, basically.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Flushed.
Yes, flushed, yeah. Immediately won the heart of the tearful Mrs. Cooper. And she said, "Oh, you can call me Dove," which is apparently the name Tommy Cooper called her all her life, Right. "Oh, please do come in." For the next 2 or 3 hours, they sat drinking more liquor together on the settee alongside a plate of half-eaten banana sandwiches, which Tommy Cooper had taken on stage before he collapsed.
Yeah.
So Mrs. Cooper had the last plate of banana sandwiches.
Yeah.
What a fantastic memento.
Amazing.
You know what I mean?
Are you a fan of banana sandwiches?
Yes, I like banana sandwiches. Yeah, I do. On very fresh white bread. Yeah.
I had them once.
And sugar.
Sorry to interrupt your story for a moment.
Yes, that's right.
But when I was at Bath University a long time ago, some friends of mine had graduated, right? They'd finished their final year. I'd only finished my first year, I think. And we decided to have a party in the afternoon of banana sandwiches and tequila.
Oh, okay, that sounds great.
Which sounded like a great idea.
Sounds great.
And we all got very, very drunk on the tequila. The banana sandwiches went very well.
Yeah.
But on the way back down, because Bath University was on top of the hill,
Yes.
and you would walk down through the field sometimes to get back down to the town.
Yes.
And they had one of those electric fences to protect the sheep, with
sure,
just the string.
Yeah.
And because we were all so bladdered, we decided a great game would be to try and hold on to this string for as long as you could.
Yeah,
because when you try and do it, you can't do it.
Right.
You put your hand on it and it just makes you jump
that's
off.
Right, yeah.
But one guy...
Automatic reflex.
Yeah, automatic reflex. One guy managed to actually do it. And I mean, this is how you know that you wasted your time at university, right?
Yeah.
This guy stood there and he was able to hold it.
Right.
For about 5 minutes.
Right.
But what it then
Not 5 minutes, 5 seconds.
No,
probably.
it was like 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
He was holding on to it.
Must have burnt through his hand.
No, it didn't, because it's not a very strong thing.
Okay, yeah.
But what it did was it made his features all start twitching. And we found this... I mean, we were all literally falling about laughing at this point.
Except for the poor guy who's now probably got
standing there,
some terrible mental condition.
No, his cheeks were twitching, his face was moving. I mean, everything apart from his hand was being run by this electricity current that was going through. It was amazing. I don't know why I remembered that suddenly. But
it doesn't matter.
I've always thought about banana sandwiches and that.
No, that's a very interesting story. It really is. Anyway, so they're sitting there and they're talking, they're drinking, they're staring at this plate of banana sandwiches, right? So for the next 3 hours, while Mrs. Cooper wept into her gin and tonic, copious amounts were drunk, McEntee was fielding calls from fellow comedians, including Eric Morecambe, Ronnie Barker, and informing them in Jeeves-like tones that Mrs. Cooper is indisposed.
Right.
He was like being her protector. You see what I mean? Yeah.
Where had the Filipino maid gone, I wonder?
Well, I've no idea. Anyway, on his return to Fleet Street, he walks into the newsroom. So imagine you and I with those...
What did he say? He was working for the Express then, or who? Does it say?
It doesn't say.
Right.
So on his return to the newsroom, I mean, imagine coming back with 3 hours of Tommy Cooper's widow in your notebook and
the biggest story of the week, if not the year.
And sitting there and, describing the distress of the widow and literally doing it in front of this plate of half-eaten banana sandwiches, which were, he had those in his dressing room when he died. I mean,
well, just fielding the calls from the comedians as well.
Fielding the calls from Eric Morecambe and Ronnie Barker. So he walked in the news and said, "Right, how did we get on?" And he said, "She wouldn't talk to me."
Really?
And he walked off and went home. And he says, "I just hadn't the heart to write it up for the delectation of my readers." Only years later, when Mrs. Cooper had long since died, did he tell the story in the Oldie magazine, which, of course, is run by Richard Ingrams, who's reviewed this book. I'm sorry, but honestly, John, if you'd have told us that story in this studio, I'd have thrown you out.
Really?
That is an absolute betrayal of every journalistic principle.
Have you never interviewed somebody and deliberately not put certain things into the story, though? Because
Very rarely.
What do you mean, very rarely? You mean no, don't you?
Well, probably
because
no.
Because you have no heart for that.
I have a heart.
No,
of course I have a heart.
You
but
have no
our job in life is to go and find out what's happening where ordinary members of the public can't, and then relay it to them.
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm saying is, I'd have written the most sympathetic piece about how distraught she was, how much she loved Tommy Cooper, her fondest memories, her favourite memories, the plate of banana sandwiches, the way that they'd met at the age of 16, because they did. I remember seeing a documentary.
I must admit, if you spend that much time with someone,
unbelievable,
and they know who you are, because then, unless he misrepresented himself, because I mean, you wouldn't want to do that.
No,
but certainly you would think there must have been a way of writing it.
Well,
which she would have been happy with.
I find that the most remarkable admission from a Fleet Street journalist I've ever come across. That it got to my heart. What I think is probably nearer to the truth, and we'll have to perhaps get John back and find out, is that he was so bladderated he couldn't remember a word.
Maybe he didn't write any of it down. Couldn't remember a word. Couldn't even remember who'd been out to interview. But that was part of the job as well. Though. Yeah. You had to be able to work while in a state of inebriation, because so much of the time you were. Drinking anyway, for one reason or another, and you had to be able to do it.
How many times did you take somebody into your confidence in a drinking environment, but you didn't want them to think you were scribbling down every word they said, and every 10 minutes, excuse me, I've just got to go to the loo. Yeah. You go to the loo, you take out your notebook.
That's the old Dustin Hoffman trick from All the President's Men, isn't it?
Was it? I didn't see.
Yeah, when he finally gets into the house of somebody who is willing to talk about the break-in and what the various characters used to do in various offices, and he didn't have a notebook, and he didn't want to take it out in front of her. Yeah. So he was going to the toilet, writing it down napkins, toilet paper, writing on the back of matchbooks, and all that.
Exactly. That's what you do. But I find that just absolutely astonishing. I tell you what happened to me once, because you always got to be honest and upfront, I think, about who you are. And I during the Falklands War, I was sent down to Devon, to Devonport, to Plymouth, to find the widow of the captain of HMS Sheffield.
Yes, after it had been sunk.
Yeah. And in those days, we didn't have any mobile phones. We didn't have any laptops that you could, scurry through and find addresses and all this kind of. You had simply phone books, as we talked about the other night. Yeah. So I stopped at a phone book somewhere, on the edges of Plymouth, looked up the name and all that, and remarkably...
And usually in the phone booth, actually, the books were there,
The books were there, remarkably,
They wouldn't be now. I don't think they'd last now.
No, and I found three names which could have been her, because she also had her name before she was married. She worked under. She was like a solicitor or something, So you had to pile through all these books. Anyway,
and then you had to find the address as well, because you then presumably either had to have an A to Z of the area,
exactly,
or ask somebody,
exactly. And also remember, Plymouth is all right, but once you get to the villages outside Plymouth, you've got more phone booths with different phone books. Right. You had to, it took me about a day and a half anyway. So eventually, I hit lucky and I got it. So I drove down the street of very nice houses, I'd say, 3 or 4 bedroom detached houses. And I thought this woman's probably going to be in distress. So I stopped and I went to the house next door. I knocked on the door like this, hello. And I said, excuse me. I explained who I was. I said, I'm from Daily Express. And she said, oh, right, OK. I said, your next door neighbour, I believe her to be the widow of Captain who died in the Sheffield estate. She said, yes, she is. I said, I see. I said, and are you a friend of hers? And she said, oh, yes. She said, my husband is also a naval officer. I said, oh, I see. I said, is this a naval sort of estate? She said, not really, but they do have a lot of houses here. I said, look, would you do me a favour, please? I don't want to go and blindly knock on her door. I said, family might be there. Would you tell her that I'm from the Daily Express, I've come out, I'd love to speak to her, I want to pay tribute to her husband, and I want to know what she's got to say about the fact that he has given his life for his country. She said, yes, OK, that's a very nice way of doing it, leave a minute. She went next door. She came back, she said she'd like to talk to you. Right. Went in, and I had hours with her, literally hours. We got like a 3-page spread out of it, and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, that's a bit similar to what John's done. Yeah. But I just don't understand how he could have come back and not done anything.
It's inconceivable that you would have come out of that conversation and gone, I can't write any of this.
No, exactly. Because, I mean, she would have very greasy. And by the way, in her house...
job, basically.
In her house... I mean, I even got the pictures, because there were pictures of him graduating, there were pictures of him with the Prime Minister. Well, no, she didn't. I had to, funny enough, use a local photographer to come and take pictures of them.
But she let you take them?
Oh, she shouldn't let me take them out of the house. Right. But I said, look, can I ask them to come down?
Because there were times in olden times, maybe before you and I's time, where people would go in a house and just steal the pictures.
Oh, no, I've done that.
Which we wouldn't. You've done that. I've done that. I don't know you want to admit to that.
No, I've stolen one off the top of a piano.
Really?
In a house.
That's shocking.
I had to bash the door down, and while the photographer was explaining to the householder why we'd bash the door down, I ran through to the parlour and I got the picture off the top of the piano and rushed off with it.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
We are the Two Mics. Loads more coming up, including next, a little chat about watermelon seeds.
You're listening to the Two Mics on TalkSport.
This is a repeated programme, so please don't call the show, as you won't get through, but you still may be charged.
Enjoy!
We are the Two Mics. Ask Porky's coming up very shortly, so if you haven't had a question answered or a problem solved by Porky live on air, now is your chance to do it. You can tweet us at the Two Mics, or you can look at our Facebook page, of course, as well, where we post an awful lot of stuff about upcoming live shows. The next one is in Whitley Bay on September the 24th on
Certainly
a Saturday, and then we're doing Liverpool November the 4th on a Friday night.
That's right.
The O2 Academy, and then we're doing Glasgow Garage on December the 17th. So
certainly are.
It's another busy old autumn
you know what?
and winter for us, isn't it?
Those first two coincide with Everton fixtures that I need to go to.
Really?
So, for instance, on the 24th when we're in Whitley Bay,
Yeah.
Everton are playing at Bournemouth.
Yeah, we can't go to that one, can
And
we?
I always get a huge invitation to Bournemouth.
Yeah.
You know, they open the doors for me. I donate money to the local charities. They
well,
welcome me with open
buying
arms.
your way in, isn't it?
No.
That's the thing.
And then.
But our good friend Kelly Summers is no longer there, though.
Well, I suppose that's it. She's moved
moved
on to
on.
great things,
Yeah.
and good luck to her. She
Yeah.
has a great career. Which she will have. And then on the 4th, on Friday night, we're in Liverpool at the O2.
Yes.
On the 5th, right, I've got to skedaddle back to London because Everton are playing Chelsea at 5 p.m.
Oh, are they?
Which is handy.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll have time to get back for that, I would
So
imagine.
we're doing a show on the Saturday.
Stamford Bridge, we probably will be, yeah.
sure?
Can't say too much
Yeah,
about that.
okay,
at the
right,
moment.
okay, yeah.
But we'll get
Yeah.
to that. Let's talk now instead, though, to Graham Hilditch, who is, of
Indeed.
course, a nutritionist, because the latest superfood, apparently, and you were always telling me about these superfoods, and I don't know why.
I just can't believe
some
this
of them
one.
I eat, some of them I don't. This one is watermelon seeds. I don't see myself doing it. I'm not a big seed person. But let's talk to Graham and find out. Graham, a very good evening to you.
Evening to you guys. How you doing?
Yeah, very well indeed, thank you.
Very well indeed. Now, I mean, we've heard of all sorts of different seed-type things that you can eat, which are meant to be terribly good for you. I don't eat seeds. I just don't fancy them. I don't like what they do to the inside of your mouth. I don't like the way that they kind of gum up the works and all that kind of thing. I mean, what's so great about watermelon seeds?
Well, it's interesting looking at the report that comes, the report that's recently come through. It's kind of it's going on about their very dense protein, amount of protein in them. And what's interesting about it is they quoted that you can get around about 20 grams of protein per 100 grams of watermelon seed. Now, to give you some sort of idea of how many watermelon seeds that is, a handful is going to contain about 4 or 5 grams.
Right.
You're looking at a huge. You're going to have to consume a huge number of watermelons.
So you're talking 20 handfuls, effectively.
Oh, this is ridiculous, and that's just, you can imagine how many watermelons you're going to have to get through. So the immediate report that's come out today, going on about the wondrous amount of protein in watermelon seeds, isn't really much to write home about because it's highly impractical, but. Watermelon seeds and seeds in general are incredibly nutrient dense. I mean, they all contain a whole lot of chemicals and nutrients, and so they are exceptionally good to eat. Not necessarily on their own, but just with other things.
Well,
they're great to run yogurt, for example. They're great.
Well, you say that, Graham. You see, I think the world's gone mad. To start off with, if I ever eat melon, which is quite nice and refreshing, particularly on the Mediterranean or something like that, what I do is I get a bowl and I spit all the seeds out. I don't want to eat them. You know, this is the last thing.
Cut them out.
You mean you don't like that crunch, that contrast of the soft, juicy melon flesh with the crunchy seeds?
No, I don't, because, listen, I've researched this very well indeed. The actual watermelon seeds, before anybody's treated them, are bitter and tough, okay? They don't taste like anything, and for them to become an edible food, a superfood, you have to remove the black, bitter outer shell and roast the inside. Who on earth
You have to roast the seeds?
Yeah. Who on earth?
You're right there, and that's what intrigues me about this sort of latest release, because I think that seems to be a kind of a backhanded promotion of watermelon seeds available in a health food shop, which are going to be, I can imagine, extortionately expensive. So to save people the having to remortgage their home in order to buy watermelon seeds for their nutritious breakfast, there are other foods you can eat. I mean, for example, just eat a wide range of highly coloured fruits and vegetables.
Yeah. Well, also, if you're looking for protein, there's any number of ways of getting protein into your system, isn't there?
Plenty, absolutely. And whether you're a vegetarian or non-vegetarian, and meat in itself is fantastic. But also, there's a wide range of incredible food sources where you can get a sufficient amount of protein from non-meat.
I mean, here, Graham, listen to this, right? This is a promotion for watermelon seeds. This is why we're talking to you, because I think it's so ludicrous. It says, when you take a handful of watermelon seeds, it says your recommended daily amount of magnesium, 102% of bone-strengthening phosphorus, and 50% of iron will be fulfilled in that one mouthful of seeds. I mean, people don't eat food like thinking like that, do they? Oh,
no,
look, you know.
No, you don't.
I mean, I don't even like pine nuts. You know.
A dozen more common foods that would have more amount of magnesium and all the other nutrients in it. So, yes, I certainly tell your listeners not to get overly excited about
this is a con-trick. This is a con-trick.
Why don't you tell Graham what you've had today, right? And he can tell you whether you've absorbed any protein from what you've eaten.
Well, what's that got to do with it? We're talking about superfoods here, or so-called superfoods.
Graham's a nutritionist, and he can help you with your diet.
Okay,
So you had the foot-long sausage roll on the way home last night?
I did, yes.
Right, and a cold Cornish pasty that had been lying around all day?
Well, that hadn't been lying around all day, but I mean, that was last night. I mean, today...
So today, what did you have?
For breakfast?
Yeah.
I had a corned beef sandwich.
Corned beef sandwich?
Yes.
Very nice.
Sorry, Graham, what are you laughing at?
I want you to carry on. This is great.
Right, okay. And then...
Did you have butter on it?
Yes, I had.
Any tomato?
I had cold butter, which is frozen,
Yeah.
because it makes the corned beef taste better on the white bread.
Okay.
All
right.
That's good.
The next?
Well, I decided to do something that I don't normally do today, and I cooked a spaghetti bolognese.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
Wow.
And in that spaghetti bolognese, Graham, I put tomatoes.
Tin tomatoes?
Yes, 10 tomatoes chopped up. Basil, right? I love basil.
Yeah.
Onion.
Was it fresh basil? Or was it...
No, it wasn't, you idiot. It was basil
What do you mean, you idiot? I've got a basil plant.
Hang on, it's a basil out of a plastic container you buy in Tesco. It's still basil.
Dried basil.
Yeah. And onion and mushrooms and all that kind of stuff, right? And with spaghetti pasta type stuff.
Spaghetti, yeah. Do you have some Parmesan cheese with it?
No, I didn't actually. And then this evening...
you had that for lunch?
Yes, that's right, yeah. And then this evening, prior to departing my home, I actually had another corned beef sandwich. Because it was left in the package and I didn't, I think... Yeah.
So I don't know if you've got some kind of a calculator there for nutrition, Graham. But
in my head, I'm just sort of trying to mentally tot up. Yeah, we all know that we should all sort of have 5 portions of fruit and vegetable a day.
Oh, no, I had an orange. I definitely had an orange, I remember now.
Well, there's one.
Yeah.
I think maybe I'd be generous, but I'll give you one for your spaghetti bolognese with the sort of tomato and maybe some onions and some mushrooms. So we're probably up to 2 maximum, and I think we might have to stop at 2 out of 5.
Well, I mean,
you can't be perfect every day.
Well, hang on. Who made up this table in the first place? You know what I think it was? I think it was the food manufacturers inventing this ridiculous get you 5 a day, so we all go around buying stuff we eventually throw away. More food, Graham, is thrown away now than in the history of civilization, is it not?
Yes, it is, and that is a very sad fact.
Exactly.
Do you want to know what I had now?
No, I'm not interested in what you had.
Why not?
Why should I be? I'm great, great.
It's called the Two Mics, this show.
We were talking about watermelons.
Yeah.
And now you've made it your culinary delights. What did you have today, then?
I had some, this morning I had some blueberries and yoghurt.
Oh, blueberries and yoghurt.
Start off with. Then a couple of pieces of toast with some cream cheese, actually.
Oh, rubbish.
Yeah, I did.
You're making this up.
No, I'm not.
This is why you wanted us to know what you had today.
No,
You're making up all this nonsense.
Not at all.
When did you last have blueberries and yoghurt, you?
This morning.
Yeah, rubbish. Anyway, go on.
Wouldn't I? And then I decided to make... I've got some lentils. I had a jar of lentils.
Lentils?
That I've been wanting to do something with. I have.
See, Graham's laughing. Lentils tasteless. It's tasteless rubbish.
Not when I finished with them.
Tasteless.
I made a very nice lentil soup, and what I did was I put some serrano ham in the pot, along with some onion and some bit of garlic, and fried that up. Put some green beans in, put some carrots in, and I put some lentils in. A little white wine as well. And
white wine.
Little white wine to fry it up in, very nice, very tasty. And then some parsley, some coriander, a bit of lemon, and I had the soup later on in the afternoon before I came to work. Then it was lovely. What do you think of that, Graham?
Yeah, no, I'm not entirely exactly how much of that to believe, but even if half of it...
What do you mean you don't believe it?
Exactly.
What are you talking? Why would you not believe it? I cook a lot at home.
Rubbish.
I'm very...
It's a shocking thing to say.
You've
just been branded a fantasticist, Mike.
There's only one fantasist in this studio, and it's you. I did actually make that.
Go out for dinner together, and I think you should tweet a picture of the contrast of the culinary delights.
Well, if you follow me on Twitter, right, at IROMG, you'll see plenty of pictures of what I cook. But I don't put everything out that I cook because people get a bit bored with it, and they say you're just showing off again.
Yeah. But anyway, getting back to the watermelons, Graham, it'll never take on, will it? People will never pick it up. It's just ridiculous. I mean,
no, some people do. Some people will take this and say, "Oh, that's a new fad," because superfoods move on, and people want to believe there's another superfood that's a bit more fashionable.
So, what did you eat today, Graham? Let's see what you had.
What did I have to eat?
Yeah.
Right, let's have a look. I had this morning. I had a smoothie which features some fruits, a bit of yogurt, and some milk, all shaken up together in
Have you got a smoothie? Have you got a machine at home, or do you get it outside?
It's like a NutriBullet thing.
I suppose you see yourselves a bit of a smoothie, do you, Graham? Eh?
I'd like to think. My wife doesn't think so, but I'd like to think so. Right. So that was my breakfast, and I had plenty of fruit throughout the day. I had a wrap with avocado and tomato for lunch.
Yeah. People eat avocado on toast now, don't they?
You can do, yeah.
Yeah, avocado's great food. And to be honest,
my children
on the radio, my children to bed. I haven't had any dinner yet, so.
Right. Well, I don't want to eat too late at night, because it's bad for you.
Yeah, well, that's joking aside, that's the thing with nutrition. You could name me very few foods that a nutritionist somewhere would not argue at and say why it's bad for you.
Yes.
Very few. I mean, generally, if you were to name the most organic vegetables, then they're fairly safe. But you can name pretty much any other food source, and it'll either be full of too many toxins of this, too much of that, too much salt, too much sugar, too much fat. And the arguments continue. And this is the minefield of nutrition.
It is a minefield.
It is a minefield, and it's a shame because for people in nutrition, it's sort of difficult to know.
And also, may I just say this, that anybody who's mad enough to go around buying cartons of watermelon seeds, do you know what they should do? They shouldn't do it. They should send the money to places in the world where people are starving every day so they can have basic food. Remember this, Graham, if you give a man a fish, you allow him to eat that day. If you teach him how to fish, he can eat forever.
Well, as long as he lives near a lake.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a simile, an analogy for if you teach a guy how to, trap a wild boar.
Teach a guy to roast watermelon seeds.
Well, watermelon seeds are just nonsense. They're nonsense in my view.
All right. Listen, Graham, sorry to have taken up so much of your time.
Yeah,
I hope you have a pleasant meal. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Graham Hilditch, their nutritionist, who I don't think was too impressed with your diet. I had a wrap last night, funnily enough, when I got home.
Did you?
But it didn't have avocado and tomato in it. It had a kebab in it.
I need somebody.
It's that time of the week again, Porky, where we're going to do Ask Porky. I hope you're ready for this, because we've got quite a few tweets and things. People have been reacting to your statements of earlier on in the show. Now, we've got lots and lots of great questions, of course, that have come in over the course of the last sort of few hours.
Okay.
And if you want to get one in now, excuse me, I would advise you to be quick, because we've got loads here to be getting on with. But here's a kick-off to start with from Vaughan. Okay. What would be the one quote that you tell people is your favourite?
My favourite quote is, and it's my own quote, is if you're not winning, it's because you're not trying hard enough. And I sincerely believe that. All sorts of situations crop up in life and people just give up. Or they crop up in life and you say, it's too much effort, I can't be bothered. Or they crop up in life and you say, no, I'll settle for second best. Honestly, if you've got to win, you've got to try harder and try harder and try harder. You can solve every problem. When you address a problem, it's not whether it's solvable or not, it's the attitude with which you approach it. And you'll eventually get there.
So your favourite quote is one of your own?
Yes.
It's not a quotation from somebody else?
No, it's one of my own. If you're not winning, it's because you're not trying hard enough.
Okay. Here's one from Kevin, who says, "Hi, the two mics. I stopped my CD buying addiction a few years ago, but this has led to my addiction to something else, which I'm not going to talk about, getting out of hand. Whenever I can, have you got any advice on how to stop this, to moderate it, or to carry on?" It's a question about being addicted to something, really. How do you get off being addicted to something?
I'm really sorry, unless I know exactly what your addiction is. It's very, very difficult to give you advice on that. All addictions are filling a gap and a void in your mind which is empty of something else. What I'm saying is there are better things in life to be involved in than addictions.
Yes.
And if you've got an addiction, you've got to fight it. And if you fight an addiction, you can sometimes beat it, suppress it, kill it, or get rid of it. But if you just give in to the addiction and start telling people, it's not my fault, I have an addiction, you're a loser.
Rodney says this on Twitter: "I'm due to receive some free employee shares from my employer. Should I collect them now or wait 2 years and pay no tax?" I'm not sure if that's right anyway.
Well, I don't know the ins and outs of your tax on that. What I would say is if you're offered an opportunity to take options, which is what we're talking about here, aren't we, then you should take them, and you should let the course of the business in which you're involved take its toll. I have always believed that the best business to invest in is one that you are working in, because you've got some influence on the outcome of it.
Okay. Here's another job-related one from Joe Man, who says, "I'm unhappy at my job and desperate to leave. Should I give my notice even though I have no new job lined up?"
Well, you see, again, that's a very, very wide-ranging question. The point is, you go, don't let me job, I think I'll give it up. The fact that you say you've got nothing to go to means no, you don't give the job up, because if you give the job up, you're just a loser, pal. And what you're saying is that I can't be bothered to get out of bed in the morning for this job. The job that you're doing now that you don't like should stimulate you and motivate you to get a better job. So the answer is no, you don't give it up, you don't be idle, you contribute something to whatever it's doing, but outside of your working hours, and not many of us work more than about 8 hours a day, go and find yourself another better job by knocking on doors and kicking doors down until people notice you've just broken the window.
Well, there's a lot of people who work more than 8 hours a day. I know that you don't, but, I mean, lots of people do, so I think you should take that into account. Matt says this on Facebook: Dear Porky, please help me with the following dilemma. In a couple of weeks' time, on the same night, there are 2 events planned, miles apart from each other. My wife's 40th birthday party with all family members in attendance, and my best mate since childhood stag do. Both events would, of course, result in bladderation, but how would you have dealt with this classic dilemma?
No dilemma at all. You go to your wife's 40th birthday party. That is red. That is red. You cannot not go to that. It's a big family event. 40 is a critical age because, to be honest, many people regard it as being leaving youth and entering middle age. So if I were you, pal, I would go to that. As for stag parties, I've never been to one in my life. I wouldn't go to one. They're a pathetic attempt for men who are about to get married to say, oh, one last free night. What an insult to the woman you're marrying. And by the way, we are all so rich these days, many of us go through 2 or 3 nights each week.
I thought you were going to say 2 or 3 wives there.
2 or 3 nights each week, which could be described as a stag party night.
Well, really? Is that true?
Yes.
Martin says this: rumours of Tom Hiddleston and Taylor Swift suggest that they are arguing and are in a crisis. How would you personally help them?
I wouldn't bother, because my own personal belief without implying that it was just a huge publicity stunt, is that it was. They did a lot for each other. They whipped up this fantastic interest in one of the world's leading
singers. It's not like they need to, is it?
No. The world's it helps, because you've got to remember he's in the queue to be the next James Bond.
I told you last night it's probably going to be Daniel Craig for the next 2.
Yeah, Daniel Craig. You're absolutely right there. For the next one, and she, all singers go through lulls in record sales and all that. I personally believe that, I'm not saying that he deliberately stunted it, but it was a very, very good reflection on each other's careers against the other.
Possibly so. Lloyd says this on Facebook: Dear Porky, did you ever pull a story from your paper that you subsequently regretted doing? And if so, what was the story?
Yeah, I don't think I did. I mean, you have to pull stories when other people in the building say that's legally dangerous. And
well, there must have been plenty of those occasions.
There were plenty of those occasions. I'll tell you one story we had to sit on for 2 or 3 weeks, and I had to keep sending people out to Australia. Yeah. Norman Luck, a friend of ours. We actually broke the story that Princess Anne's husband, Captain Mark Phillips, had an illegitimate child.
Like a love child.
Yeah, a love child born to a woman in Australia. It took us a month to crack it. When we cracked it, the editor lost his bottle, and I sent 2 more people out there for 2 or 3 weeks. We eventually got it into the paper.
And he didn't want to run it.
He didn't want to run it.
Yeah.
But I think he was under pressure from the establishment not to run it.
Yes. Bill says this: in light of the recent diving video of Porky, which is the one from Mallorca, will he be seeking Tom Daly's advice on the next one?
No, of course I won't, because Tom Daly is a professional diver and a very successful one. 2 bronze medals at 2 different Olympics. You have to understand that that was an attempt to show people, if you really put your mind to it, we can all achieve things in life. I achieved it.
And you can go and watch that on 2 Mics TV if you wish on YouTube, or you can see it on Facebook as well.
Indeed.
Pierre says this: Dear Porky, please can you give me some grooming tips on how to grow a great beard? I've been trying occasionally over the years, but always struggled. I don't want a big, bushy, messy one. One like yours is good, neat and close to the face.
Well, I wouldn't say mine isn't even close to the face anymore. When I was a youth and my hair was auburn, it went from sort of ginger to auburn in my sort of 20s, I had a very impressive beard. I mean, I generally looked like Robin Gibb. You remember?
Robin Gibb?
Robin Gibb. It looked like Robin Gibb, honestly.
Gibb didn't often have a beard, though, did he?
He did. He had a very heavy, dark beard, honestly.
Really?
For a lot of his life. He did, yeah, honestly.
And you're not thinking about Barry Gibb?
Oh, yeah, Barry Gibb. I'm sorry, I'm talking about Barry Gibb.
Robin Gibb was the skinny one.
Yeah, Robin Gibb was the
didn't
skinny
really
one.
have a beard.
Sorry, I meant Barry Gibb.
I mean, he's such a big fan of the Bee Gees.
That's right, yeah, I meant Barry Gibb, okay? Yeah. And the reason I had it was, well, because it attracted women, to be honest. They thought I looked swarthy.
You think it was to cover up your weak chin?
No, it wasn't to cover up a weak chin at all. And it looked great while I had auburn hair. And I had flowing auburn locks and I had the flowing auburn beard. You know, I looked like a Viking sort of warrior type guy, you know what I mean?
No,
it's very good. With those...
you look like one of those guys from Clash of Clans.
With those Air Force glasses as well, you know, perched on my nose, as was the fashion in the sort of 80s, 90s, and all that kind of stuff, you know? The aviators, thank you very much indeed. However, these days, my hair's gone to silver.
White.
Yeah, sort of white silver. And the only reason I still have a beard is because I've always had one, but I think, you know, the time will come when it'll have to go.
OK, how about this one? This is a good one from Jonathan. Yep. Porky, what is your mission statement?
My mission statement? My mission statement is to not waste the life you've been given. You only get one life. You must make the most of it. A friend of mine who started on the Chester Chronicle on the same day as me triumphantly became the editor some 30 years later.
Is he the guy that used to go to the pub on a horse?
No, that's not him, not at all. No, he was an adventurous individual. No, this guy, he was a very good tennis player, actually. He used to play a lot of local tennis and all that kind of stuff. He never left Chester. 30 years after we started, so he was about 50, he became the editor of the paper.
Well, good for him.
In those 30 years, I had such a hugely varied career in newspapers, and by that time into radio and some television and all that.
TV.
He wasted his life. I'm sorry, but he just wasted his life.
Yeah, but he became editor of a paper, which you didn't.
An editor of a weekly paper. Yeah. But but I edited, national newspapers, not on a full-time basis, but on Sundays and that sort of stuff. Yeah. So he wasted his life, and the one thing you must make sure of when you're 16, 17 or 18 is that you're going to have an exciting life, that every day is going to be an adventure, that you are going to try your hardest to make sure you are not a run-of-the-mill person, and that when you come to the end, you didn't waste your life.
OK. One final one from John on Facebook. Dear Porky, the latest Keith Vaz scandal is another example of politicians involved in misdemeanours. Why do you think so many MPs are involved in such antics?
I'll tell you why. Because once they get into the House of Commons, and I've worked in the House of Commons many times, the level of arrogance and the attitude of we're untouchable, and the attitude of we're special, and the attitude of you can't touch us is pervasive, absolutely pervasive. Believe me, they really do think we're running the country and everybody else can go and whistle, okay? And for that reason, they drop their guard all the time and they get found out. MPs, most of the MPs I've met in my life are scumbags who actually don't do a decent day's work. You are doing them a favour voting for them, but they try to tell you that they're doing you a favour in the country. Rubbish. Most politicians, most MPs, scumbags.
OK, well, thank you very much indeed. That was Ask Porky. That was the Porky mission statement right there at the end, even though that wasn't actually technically the question about the mission statement. Coming up tomorrow, it's Porky Vision, the great TV review that Porky will give us. And, of course, there'll be a quiz coming up on Thursday. We have to pick the subject matter of that coming up a little bit later on. We are the Two Mics coming up in the next hour. We're going to be talking about teeth, which is a subject close to our hearts, because your teeth reconstruction is still ongoing.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
When are you going back for the next
November?
couple of months?
November the 15th, I think
right.
it is. And I'll have 2 teeth placed on the bolts, which are already in my jaw or gum, in my gum. And apparently they have to knit in over like 6 months before you can put the teeth in.
Yeah. Now, I've got a note here from a good friend of ours who's one of our naval intelligence types,
okay,
right?
yeah.
He doesn't want to cast any aspersions on you, but he says you might be getting your wires crossed about the HMS Sheffield. Yeah. He says that Sam Salt was the captain of HMS Sheffield, who retired in 1997. Yeah. So he might have been the first officer or something.
He was the first officer. Yeah. So I want to...
Because I know that's a true story, but you just may have mistaken Sam Salt for somebody else.
I want to accept the correction.
And he says it's a great show, though.
Yeah. Let me just say this. I don't even think he was the first officer. I'm sorry. The reason I said captain was because I wanted to indicate he was a very senior officer. The Sheffield went down because the Exeter hit it in the magazine, and I think the chap I'm talking about was the weapons officer. I think he was the weaponry officer of the boat. Right, okay. And he was the guy I went to see.
And he also says...
the widow I went to see.
And he said, I'm glad you mentioned HMS Illustrious the other day. He said, because he said, can I just say, I met my lovely wife on HMS Illustrious 10 years ago where we worked together, and as soon as we got married, we went back to where we first met. Yeah. And can I just say, unlike Lusty, our marriage will not be sent to Turkey and turned into razor blades.
No, that's right. It's going on its last journey very soon on the way out. Funny enough, when I was on the coast last, what day was it? Was it Saturday? I'm trying to remember. I think it was Saturday.
Yeah, it would have been Saturday.
No, it's Friday. It was Friday. Sorry, I went on Friday, and managed to watch HMS Daring set off on a 9-month mission to the Persian Gulf, where it will provide vital cover for American aircraft carriers, from which the aeroplanes from the US Navy are striking in those sort of jihadist stronglands around Syria and where else are they? Afghanistan, that sort of stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, not quite Afghanistan.
Not Afghanistan.
Iran.
Iran. Sorry.
Yeah, Iran. Right, One from Chris. He says the best TV review this side of Philadelphia has got me hooked to One of Us. Cheers for Porky Vision.
Yes, no, I don't blame you. It's a fascinating programme, and no, the great thing about it is you think, hang on, where can this go now? It's all so strange, and it goes stranger and stranger. That's the point. Now, listen, I want to talk to you about plastic clothes.
Plastic clothes.
Now, of course, in the the swinging 60s and all that, people Mary Quaint and all that. Mary
Quant.
Quant, yeah. People walking around.
Quant.
Yeah, well, walking around in sort of plastic bags and, bin liners and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that was more the punk era, wasn't it?
I suppose
that was more Vivienne Westwood.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Anyway, plastic clothes have now been found to be the coolest thing you can wear in heat like this.
Really?
Now,
I would have thought plastic would make you hotter.
I would have thought that plastic would actually perspire on the inside of the plastic against your skin. But listen to this. A revolutionary new clothing material has been developed that allows people to keep cool without having to take their clothes off.
Right.
Researchers believe that the low-cost plastic-based textile woven into clothing cools down people better than any natural synthetic fibres.
But I guess, this is modern, sort of very sophisticated plastic, isn't it? I mean, when you think of plastic clothes, you're thinking of sort of hard plastic.
Yes.
Well, I am anyway.
Yes.
But I presume it's probably not hard plastic.
Well, I suppose it's like the sort of plastic they weave into football pitches these days to make the grass stronger. But it says here, Yai Kui, Associate Professor of Materials Science and Engineering and of Photon Science, that's all about plastic.
Photon Science?
P-H-O-T-O-N, Photon Science.
I thought that would be something about light, wouldn't it?
No, that's about plastics.
Is it?
At Stanford University, which we know well, said if you can cool the person rather than the building where they work or live, that will save energy.
Yeah.
So this is an energy thing, okay?
Yeah, because we like to be very cool in the studio because it's air-conditioned.
Yes, that's right,
I can't think of any other way to keep it cool.
That's right. Now, it says the material allows perspiration to evaporate through it, which is what ordinary fabrics already do, but it has a second and revolutionary cooling mechanism, allowing the heat that the body emits as infrared radiation to pass through the plastic textile.
But how does the plastic breathe? I mean, you know that cotton does, but I don't think plastic does.
This is a new plastic.
Right.
Now, Shanhui Farn, who is another professor at Stanford, he said 40... Farn, F-A-N.
Oh, F-A-N,
okay. 40 to 60% of our body heat is dissipated as infrared radiation when we're sitting in an office.
Right.
But until now, there has been little or no research on designing the thermal radiation characterization of textiles. Okay,
Really?
You got that?
No, I don't know what it means.
The research.
What does it mean?
Eh?
What does it mean? It's all very well you just shouting out these instructions.
No.
What does it mean?
A better way for heat to be emitted from the body.
To be emitted from the body.
Emitted, not
okay.
omitted.
Okay.
Emitted.
Okay. Right.
Now you've got to remember that caveman wrapped himself up in the furs of the giant mammoth.
The beasts.
The giant mammoth.
Yeah.
To retain body heat.
That's right.
Particularly when the Ice Age came.
It was colder then.
Well, it was freezing during the Ice Age.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why there was ice.
Right.
You know what I
mean? People couldn't survive in that. That's why they had to move to where the ice stopped.
Yeah, no, but they lived in caves for a bit.
Did you know the ice came to Chalk Farm? Did you know that?
Chalk Farm?
Chalk Farm was
North London.
The furthest point south where the ice stopped.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't realise that.
That's the bottom of Haverstock Hill.
Anyway, all these. Well, what about all the cavemen in Germany then? They didn't have a problem.
Well, no, because if you draw a line, on a lateral basis across Europe, then obviously part of Germany was covered in ice, but not all of it.
Well, they'll go and live in Spain.
Well, many of them did.
Yeah,
they're still living there to this day.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Anyway, point of the story is, right, the researchers came up with a single sheet of material. Sorry, getting back to the cavemen.
Yeah.
They wrapped themselves up in the fur of the giant mammoth because they didn't understand what they were doing. They didn't realise.
Well, they knew it'd keep them warm.
No, yeah. They knew it would keep them warm, but they didn't know how it kept them warm because they weren't too bright. The old,
Homo sapiens.
No, what were they called?
Cro-Magnon man.
No. He was. They made a song about it. I'm an antipathy man. What was that song called?
Neanderthal.
Neanderthal. That's right.
Yeah.
The Neanderthal man.
Not antipathy man. That's somebody else.
No. Neanderthal man only thought that the heat. Sorry, Neanderthal man thought... No, here.
You haven't given us a lot of thought, have you?
Neanderthal man thought he was transferring the heat of the mighty mammoth fur into his body.
Oh, I see.
He didn't realise...
You don't think he thought it was just protection?
No, exactly. He didn't realise he was stopping heat being emitted from his body. You see what I
No,
mean?
he wouldn't have worn it in hot weather, would he? He wouldn't wear the woolly mammoth skin in the hot weather.
No, of course he wouldn't, because you get hotter, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
But they didn't have any hot weather during the Ice Age, you idiot.
No,
it was
but
all ice.
Yeah, but before the Ice Age, it was presumably they had normal seasons.
Listen, no guy lived in the Ice Age lived in the non-Ice Age. Because the Ice Age lasted 20,000 years, you Burke. Okay?
All right.
Yeah.
Calm down.
So if you'd have been a bloke who, I remember it wasn't an Ice Age, that would have been like 2,000 years ago.
Okay.
Anyway, so...
there's a lot we don't know about that time.
About the Ice Age?
Yeah.
Well, we know there was ice.
Well, we do, yeah. But, I mean, most people who lived in an area where there was ice didn't survive. Unless they moved south of Chalk Farm, they would finish.
An amazing number of them did survive.
Yeah.
I mean...
Because they moved where the ice wasn't.
The Inuit population live in an Ice Age, don't they?
Well, no, they just live in a cold climate.
They live in an ice climate. How could you build an igloo unless it's freezing?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they must live in an ice age, mustn't they?
Well, not all year round, I don't think.
Of course they do.
No.
Of course they do, you fool.
Alaska doesn't have ice and snow all over it, does it?
It does.
Not all the time.
In the north.
Have you not seen
Inside the Arctic Circle?
Have you not seen that show, Twin Peaks? Wasn't that in Alaska?
I don't know. I've watched Ice Road Truckers, which is brilliant. Have you ever seen that?
I have seen it, yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic. And you know, some of those Ice Road Truckers are women who are driving.
Why wouldn't they be?
Well, it's a.
Why is that surprising to you?
It surprised me because it's quite a physical ordeal to drive an 80-ton truck on a road that's full of ice when your rig can slide over the edge of a precipice and you can be killed in an instant. And quite often it involves tremendous physical. Turning of a wheel or something like that.
Or power steering.
No, or pulling of a lever or something like that. You see what I mean?
Right.
Anyway, getting back
nearly out of time now.
Well, don't worry about that because I'm explaining to you about the ice age.
I do worry about it because we've got the news to do.
Right. The material's cooling potential has been tested against a cotton fabric of similar thickness. The comparison showed that cotton fabric made the skin surface 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the plastic cooling textile.
Fantastic.
Yes.
So what?
And Professor Farn...
where can you buy this stuff?
Well, you can't buy it yet. It's not...
Well, so what's the point of telling anyone about it?
Well, because it's research. I keep you ahead of the game, don't I? You know, this is why I read journals.
Yeah, I know.
Now, it's Professor Farn believes that the research opens new avenues of inquiry to cool or heat things without the use of outside energy by tuning materials to dissipate or trap the infrared radiation given off from the body.
Really?
I think it's fantastic.
Well, good luck. Well, I look forward to seeing you dressed in plastic. I mean, your last thing was dressing up in tinfoil trousers, wasn't it?
Well, I'd still do that at some of our shows because that's the latest fashion.
That is the latest fashion, yeah. Lee says this, I remember old MG suggesting some time ago that Higglestone and Swift was a stunt and Porky taking him to task for suggesting it. You remember that?
Oh, yeah, Hiddlestone and...
See, I told
Swift,
you. I told you it was a stunt, didn't I?
Well, you know, we've been around in this business for a long time. We can spot a stunt a mile off.
You told me it wasn't a stunt.
Well,
now you think it is?
No. The way these things work is that there's an initial attraction, and then they think this is good for both of us, really, and I think they come to an understanding.
Yeah, okay. Good evening, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to Two Mics. Coming up in this hour, we're going to talk to Dr. Sam Gilbert, he's from the Institute of Cognitive Neuroscience, and of course we talk an awful lot about science on this show, and we just had a conversation about cavemen that some of you seem to think may not have been entirely accurate from Porky's point of view. Also, of course, we'll be doing a lot more of your texts and tweets as well. You're listening to the Two Mics with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry. Lee says this at the Two Mics. Why is Porky always on about people who work in offices? More projection from the Porkmeister. We're just as unhealthy outside. Well, it's only because I think that study in particular was all about people who work in offices and not at all about people who actually do things on the outside. But yeah, you're absolutely right. If they do invent plastic clothing, then I dare say that you can wear it outside or inside.
Of course you can.
Depending on what you want to do. Now, I've got some bad news for you, by the way. Your Wikipedia entry, which is always being highlighted by our fans on Twitter, has been affected once again by somebody editing it. Right? And I know there's always ridiculous things on there, like they put your age down as 81 and all this kind of nonsense. But I think this one will actually worry you more because it says in the top line that you're a British journalist and radio presenter who supports Liverpool FC.
I know.
But, I mean, that's anathema to you, isn't it?
Well, the point is, I've never read my Wikipedia entry because it is so full of anomalies and errors and mistakes and all that, and therefore you give it credibility by looking at it. And quite frankly, everybody who's ever listened to me or knows me or has met me knows I'm an Everton fan. So
they'll know it's a bit of a joke.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the trouble is, though, a lot of people think that Wikipedia is in some way a sort of genuine form of research material, which it should never be considered to be.
No, of course not.
Because, yes, they do some things quite well, but not everything on there is entirely accurate.
Yes, no, you're
so
absolutely
I think you
right.
have to be very careful. Now, I must draw your attention to something that I spotted a bit earlier on. Remember we spoke to Mike Rutherford last night about this new
top motoring journo.
Yes, top motoring journalist who told us it's world exclusive last night about the flat pack car.
Yes, that's
apparently
right.
It was unveiled today, and they're looking for business partners and city investors, basically.
Oh, yeah.
But what he didn't tell us is it's designed by Gordon Murray, who created Formula One racing cars and the McLaren F1 sports car.
Really?
So the guys behind it are quite sort of, well decorated.
Got a great track record
in the business. Yeah, very good. I like what he did there.
Yeah.
But I've just seen a picture of it. And it does, he described it as a kind of utility vehicle, but it looks a bit like a sort of a lorry-stroke minibus, doesn't it?
It looked to me, because I saw the same picture you saw, as the sort of thing that's an amphibious vehicle that you drive off the field into the water and go across the water. It looked like one of those.
Do you remember those aqua cars, by the way, in the 60s? Because I remember we used to go to the Welsh Harp, which is a sort of body of water off the North Circular Road, not far from Wembley. And there was a guy that used to go there every Sunday.
Oh, really?
And he had this car that looked a bit like an old Hillman Imp. And He used to park it
I remember
somewhere.
the sort of thing.
Yeah, and we used to watch him on a Sunday. We were sort of hanging around, walking about, because he would literally just drive it into the water. You know, it wasn't like the James Bond Lotus where you fire it off the end of a pier.
Yeah.
But he would just literally get in the car, and there was a little kind of beachy type approach into the water.
Yeah.
And he'd just drive it into the water, and then he would go in the water.
And then we'd drive out again.
Why did we stop making those? I'd love to have a car like that.
Well, they're not very practical, are they?
Well, I could use it to come to work, as I was saying at the beginning of the show. I could come up the river on it.
Yeah, but...
And just drive it into the river.
Where?
Well, there are many places where you could enter the river because there are plenty of boating slips.
But what happens
like
on a day when the water's rough and it's lapping into your car?
Well, I don't know what you would do about that, but they must have thought of that, surely.
Why were they all open-topped? Because if you had a closed-top one, the water wouldn't lap into your car.
Well, because probably they thought it was more of a recreational type thing,
exactly,
wasn't it? So you'd sit there and a bit like most motorboats when you would say buy like a powerboat or something, it doesn't have a roof.
Do you remember the Triumph Herald?
Yes.
Very
well.
They produced an amphibious Triumph Herald.
Did they?
Yeah, and I remember seeing some blinking singer called Tony somebody, from the 60s or the 70s.
Not Tony Orlando.
It may have been, I don't know, but he
Did he have Dawn in the back?
No, it wasn't him, actually. You're absolutely right. That was Knocked 3 Times on the Pipe and all that. No, this guy, was a typical 60s singer who had sort of bushy sideboards and very tight trousers and a red silk shirt.
Oh, yeah.
And
sounds like Tom Jones.
Yeah, it does a bit, but it wasn't Tom Jones. But the promotional video, what did you call it those days? Promotional cinematic. Promotional cinematic for this latest song showed him in a Triumph Herald driving into the River Thames and singing at the same time as he was waving.
Really?
And that's the only one I've ever seen. But I mean, presumably...
I must have missed that one.
Presumably they're not made because A, they're impractical and B, they're too expensive.
Yeah, it could be. But I mean, it's surprising in a way, isn't it, that somehow in this age that we now live in, I mean, like when Tomorrow's World used to predict that we'd all be flying around in, with jetpacks and all that. Yeah. You can get jetpacks, but they're not in common usage. I'm just surprised that somebody hasn't perfected a kind of a car that can go into water. That's all.
Yeah, but you go down the same route as why did we scrap the Concorde? Because it's impractical.
Well, no, but it's not. But the Concorde was scrapped in the end because of that deadly crash, even though it wasn't really the Concorde's
was scrapped in the
design.
End because it didn't make economic sense anymore.
No, but I mean, somebody would have kept it going had it not been for that crash in Paris.
Well, they could start it again if they wanted to, if they wanted to put up the money. Listen, I've got to read this out because this is from Robbie Davidson, and he makes a really good point here. I just said that, my mantra in life is if you're not winning, you're not trying hard enough. Yeah. He says... Colin Chapman, the ex-Formula One genius, first said, if you're not winning, you're not trying hard enough. If that's the case, I will accept it. I thought Colin Chapman's a great guy. He ran Lotus.
Right.
And I remember I saw a documentary on him once when he went down on the grid and he started pulling stones out of his opponent's tyres.
Really?
He said one of them had gone off on the gravel and come back on or something. He was littering stones all over and all that kind of stuff. He was a great guy. I didn't know that was his quote. And if it was...
Oh, really?
No, if it was, I didn't consciously pick it up from him. That's all I can say. But
I'm happy.
It
would sit with your image generally, though, of all the stuff that you purloin from other people and pretend that it's yours.
No, not at all.
It would.
Not at all.
It would. Now, how about this from Jane? It says, shock horror. Ice road truckers, some are even women. Tell Porky it's 2016, not 1816.
Well,
Hashtag plank.
Yeah, I think they're very brave women to do that because they spend days on the road.
Well, they're no braver than the men. The men and the women are the same.
Okay, well, what's wrong with me saying I think they're brave women? You say brave men, they're brave women.
Mark says this. Hey, MG, when Parry has just blathered on about that fashion, I've just given the wall a 1,000-yard stare. What is he going on about?
The wall?
The wall.
What's he on about?
Well, I think he's talking about the wall. Do you remember you were talking last night, actually, about throwing a tennis ball at the wall?
Yes. I see.
And making sure that, somehow the ball would go through the wall after a certain number of times.
Yes.
Somebody tweeted earlier today, does that mean that if we threw Parry at the wall for 3 months consecutively, he might eventually go through it?
Well, according to science, that's what would happen. Now, listen, you talk about the stare. This is interesting, the stare, right? Now, sometimes you've said to me in the past, you've got a problem with somebody, and I said, how did it go? You said, oh, don't worry, I gave him the stare, right? Yeah. You claim to have this terrifying...
I do have it. Well, it's not me that says it, though.
Right.
It's other people that say I've got it.
But you have this terrifying stare. If people are, doing things which might upset your daughter or something like that,
possibly
give them that terrifying stare, okay? So listen to this, because this is from my science journals. Psychologists have discovered that we instinctively give strangers the cold shoulder if we think they look aloof.
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
The study, University of Basel in Switzerland, suggests it's better to have a face that says nice but dim than to have a yeah.
I can think of a few people like that around here.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree.
Without giving any names away.
That's an expression from the Harry Enfield programme.
It is,
yeah. Nice to have a face, better to have a face nice but dim than one that is judged to be cold but efficient and competent.
Yes.
Okay?
Well, there are people who are much less approachable, aren't there? Just in life in general.
Funny you should say this.
Yeah.
It says if you've got the cold but efficient and competent face, you are more likely to be shunned at a party before you've even opened your mouth.
Right.
People will look at your face, think of you as being unapproachable and unsociable and move away from you.
See, I don't find that problem. You see, I find myself, people approach me quite a lot, but except in a work situation. In work situations, people don't approach me that much.
Really?
But I think it might be just a hangover from, being the boss or something like that.
It could be, yeah.
You have the same problem.
I've had the same
People
problem.
don't approach you, but if they know you, they do.
Yeah, sometimes.
It's just if they don't know you.
It says here, in general, people are reluctant to cut others out and take pity on them if they are ostracised.
Yes.
Unless it is thought they were expelled for some good reason. I don't understand that. In general,
Expelled from what?
Are reluctant to cut others out and take...
Oh, I see. I think it means in a social situation.
And take pity on them if they're ostracised. So you take pity on somebody who's ostracised.
Well, I mean, if it's a social situation, right, and say you're at a party or something. I mean, like that party I went to last week when I went to the wrong room.
Yes, that's right.
And I thought, well, I can't just stand here on my own looking at people.
Yeah.
And even though I didn't know anyone in the room,
that's right.
I thought, well, I've got to go up to somebody and start talking to them. But
So-
I wonder if I'd stood there for long enough, whether somebody would have come up to me. Or maybe not.
Maybe not. So what it's saying is, in general, people are reluctant to cut others out.
Yeah.
And then take pity on them if they're being shunned, right? Unless it's thought they're expelled for good reason. So what you're saying is, the prettiest girl in the room, maybe nobody's talking to her, certainly none of the other girls are talking to her, because women can be terribly envious of each other, can't they?
No, they can.
And, well, men can, I suppose, but women get
Well,
quite
it's a
bitchy
different
about
thing with men, isn't it?
Yeah.
Men have the kind of the deer... the sort of the stag rutter thing
that's
going
right.
on, don't
Yeah,
they?
sure.
They
Yeah,
sort of size each other up.
Yeah, but if it's thought that the girl is being shunned because it was discovered she stole somebody else's boyfriend the night before, quite blatantly and ruthlessly, then she's expelled for good reason. In theory, people ought to make well-considered judgments, but often they do not have the time or cannot be bothered. It's much easier to glance at the face, right? This is how it all starts.
Yeah.
You walk into a room, glance at somebody's face, and you go with the gut reaction, which can take 0.2 of a second for you to get it to your brain. Even though studies repeatedly show that instincts like this are highly unreliable on first look.
Well, people say that, but I mean, when you go back to the conversation we've had before about love at first sight and all that kind of thing, you see somebody, you're immediately attracted to them. You don't always know why, but that you never kind of lose that, and sometimes it's not a bad thing, is it? Are you saying that sometimes it's a bad thing?
Well, I don't know.
Your judgment could be wrong.
Let me give you an example. At a Christmas party within the last 2 years, you'll go to Christmas parties 2 years. Now, there was a woman that I'd had my eye on, I have to admit.
Is this an office Christmas party here or elsewhere?
An office Christmas party, but not here.
Okay. Right.
But I did a lot of sort of work with this organisation, and I'd had my eyes on this woman for an awfully long time. I thought she was quite voluptuous.
Did you?
And anyway, in this party, she was dressed up very glamorously. And I was with a group of guys, so taking Dutch courage, I stared over at her, and she was standing nearer the bar.
You stared over at her?
I stared over at her, yeah. So she looked at me with an incredibly hard-faced look. Now she was
hard-faced?
Hard-faced look, yeah.
What, you mean like the tennis player?
Yes, that's right, the tennis player. Now she was, stunningly good-looking woman,
Younger?
Yeah, but not much younger.
Right.
Younger than me, but not much younger, okay, yeah. And as far as I was concerned, she was staring straight back at me, and the message she was giving me was she had not the slightest interest. You know?
Like, why are you staring at me kind of look?
Yes, a bit like that, yeah.
And had you spoken to this woman before?
Only in a work capacity.
Okay.
When I'd sort of gone to her and, said this, that, or would discuss that or something like that, So anyway.
Was she a secretary?
No, she was not. No.
Okay.
She was had ability in our business of communications.
Oh, really?
So anyway, about 2 hours. What are you laughing?
Sorry.
At? What are you laughing?
Nothing. Go on.
Do you find this funny?
Yeah, I do think it's funny. Yeah.
I'm trying to give a psychological breakdown on how these things happen.
Right.
About 2 hours later.
I'd like to hear her version.
About 2 hours later, when more drink had been taken.
Yeah.
I got closer to her, just by people moving around the room, and I knew her name.
Right.
And I said, "Oh, hello."
It's unusual for you.
Yeah, it was a bit, yeah. And I said, "Oh, hello," and I gave her name. I don't want to say too much.
No, okay.
I said, "How are you tonight?" And she completely melted.
No.
I'm not joking. And said, "Oh, I didn't know you knew my name." I said, "Yeah, of course I know your name." She said, "Oh, I can't believe it." She said, I didn't think that, a guy like you would have time.
A guy like you?
Yeah, honestly, would have time to talk to me. And, I'm really overwhelmed. And she was very coy, and I said, well, no. I said, of course, She said, she said, I've seen you around the office and all that. I said, yeah, I've seen you. Anyway, I think we had lunch the next day or the day after.
Where did you take her? Pizza Express.
No, definitely not. No.
Where?
Joe Allen in London.
Oh, very nice.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
You didn't tell me about this.
Well, it was some time ago, and it wasn't that time. That's 2 or 3 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
And,
I've been
what I'm saying
seeing
is,
you for 2 or 3 years. I'm surprised you didn't tell me.
Well, yeah, okay.
And she didn't come out again after that, then.
Oh, yes, she did. Yeah.
So you had a few dates with her.
Yes.
And what happened?
Well, she was married. So,
she was married?
Yes, yeah. So unfortunately, it sort of petered out, really. Right. It was that sort of, decision time type thing,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like existentialism. You reach the crossroads.
Existentialism?
Existentialism is all about
I was just telling you about this the other night.
No, reaching crossroads
in life. You told me
life.
it's a load of rubbish.
Reaching crossroads in life and taking the right road to the next crossroads and then the right road from there.
Have somebody kidnapped you and replaced you with a sort of a drone version of you?
What are you on about?
Well, because you're completely different now from the way you were the other night.
No.
You told me existentialism was a load of rubbish.
No, I didn't say that
you
at all.
did, and I described to you about the crossroads and the kind of relationships and all that.
No.
You said it was all nonsense.
What I said was most people don't understand existentialism.
Some people can't even say it.
Yeah, exactly, and think it's rubbish. But anyway.
Seen the time.
So, but who knows? It might fire up again in the future.
Really?
Yeah.
You have to tell me more about this.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in your life romantically at the moment. It's hard to keep up. This is Talk Radio. Coming up, we're going to talk to Dr. Sam Gilbert about cognitive neuroscience, one of your favourite subjects. We are the Two Mics. We're going to talk about cognitive neuroscience very shortly, which is a subject very close to our hearts. Paul has tweeted, though, without any fear or favour, saying Porky is the marriage wrecker on Twitter at the Two Mics.
Not at all.
And also, Paul has sent, and a different Paul has sent a picture of Marty Feldman, who you said always used to freak you out with his eyes, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he did. Wow, look at them. They always realise.
Yeah, of course they are, yeah. Beware of women, Porky on the prowl.
Yes.
Anyway.
No, I'm never on the prowl. I don't do that. It's a mutually beneficial meeting of minds.
Yes, well, I'm very glad to hear it. Now, let's talk to Dr. Sam Gilbert, who is from the Institute of Cognitive Neuroscience, which is a fascinating subject in any event. But we were talking about this a little bit last night, about how the use of smartphones is kind of changing the way that people think.
Yes.
And the way that their memories operate, because they're now using, if they're doing it right, they're using their brains for things that aren't what you might call run-of-the-mill type memory devices.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
What I mean?
Yeah.
Let's talk to Dr. Gilbert and find out what he's got to say about it. Dr. Gilbert, very good evening to you.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now, the advent of smartphones has changed the world, really, hasn't it? In such a way that my children, for example, now would never know, how to look up well, unless I teach them. I try and teach them to look up a map on a piece of paper. But I mean, they use phones now in such ways that when we were growing up, we never had the capability to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely having a big impact on the way we think and the way that we store information and that kind of thing. So we refer to this sometimes as cognitive offloading.
Right.
So cognitive offloading is when we use the outside world or our bodies to reduce the demand on our brains. And certainly smartphones have a big impact. But I think we should also remember that this kind of cognitive offloading has happened for centuries and centuries. So before we had smartphones, we used pen and paper, and before we had pen and paper, we had stone tablets. And part of what it is to be a human is that we use whatever technologies there are around us to kind of extend our minds and to extend our abilities. But this has really leapt in pace since the advent of things like the smartphone and the internet. We have so much information available to us and so much ability to kind of offload our memories that it's really kind of accelerating.
I don't wish to disagree with you there, Doctor, but surely the advent of the smartphone has taken it on another leap and bound because, for instance, you're not old enough to remember the days when people used to knock on your door and try to sell you 26 volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Right.
And then any decent home in which children were being brought up had one.
Did your family buy them?
Yeah, they did, yeah.
Well, you bought them from the door-to-door guy?
Well, I've no idea where he got them from. But, I mean, what I'm saying is, then you wanted to find out something about, some particular aspect.
The Ice Age?
Yeah, the Ice Age or something like that. You had to go and you had to find the volume, then you had to look it up and find the subject, and then you had to pore through it and read it. Whereas these days, you literally just click in Ice Age info on your phone, and so surely that it means that the pursuit of information in this modern day and age is less challenging to the brain. You're asking the brain to do less in terms of exploring your own memory and information than you ever have done before.
That is true. I mean, it certainly changes the way that we find information. So one of the findings in the recent research has been that previously we spent a lot of our kind of cognitive energy just to remember facts and remember information. Now it's not so much about remembering the information, but remembering where to find it. So you know which website to go to for this information, or the best way of finding out other things. So
there's no doubt that some people are better at searching for things than others, for example.
True, yeah. And so it's certainly true that we devote less kind of our mental space to remembering certain kinds of information.
Yes.
But I don't think that means our brains are just kind of empty now. It means that we're using them to do other sorts of things. So
What like?
Well, I think one upside, I mean, to use a trivial example, if I previously would have spent, I have to remember to buy milk on the way home, or a shopping list or something like that. Instead of thinking about that, I set myself a reminder on my smartphone. And as I'm walking around, I can think about some problem that I might have at work, or I can think about, I don't know, I'm trying to choose a good birthday present for a friend, that kind of thing. I mean, you can do more interesting things with your mind than just remember trivial bits of information.
And how do you kind of measure that in terms of how people's minds are working, Dr. Gilbert? Because obviously, it's important that you maybe take away the more mundane parts of your day, and you can think about being more creative. But not everyone's creative. How do you know what people are thinking and how they're thinking?
Well, there's kind of two main methods. There's just looking at behaviour. So in some experiments, what they do is, for instance, you give people some information to type into a computer, and then afterwards you give them a memory test. So some people are told that the computer is saving everything they type in, and you find that those people can't remember much of it afterwards. But people, when they think that the computer is faulty, they do remember it. So you can just test behavior like that. But we also use brain imaging techniques like magnetic resonance imaging. So in some of my research, for instance, what we do is we get people lying inside an MRI scanner, and we give them a task to do, and we tell them, in a few moments' time, don't forget there's something extra you need to remember to do. And then some of the people, we allow them to set reminders for themselves, and some of them, they have to remember it all just using their brain by itself. And in these experiments, we find you actually get different patterns of brain activity. So when people set a reminder, we get some parts of the brain effectively switch off. They stop being so active when you have to remember that information, suggesting that there's some sort of reallocation of the resources in the brain. So the brain switches from doing one thing to doing another thing.
Yeah. Now, I'm quite intrigued by what you've just said there, Doc, because I got up this morning, right, and I get up quite early, about 5:30 or something like that. The first 4 emails on my laptop, when I opened it up, were all related to work things. One was relating to a live show we're doing soon. One was relating to an event that we've been asked to do next year. One was relating to compiling a video and editing it, which we're involved in at the moment. And the fourth one was about something we're doing tomorrow. Now, in before the days of laptop and all that kind of stuff, I'd have written all those down in a book somewhere, you see what I mean? Whereas within, I would say, 30 minutes of waking up and getting up this morning, I dealt with all 4 issues. So that means the brain's more active, not less, doesn't it?
That is true, yeah. It can, you can cause a reallocation like that. I mean, there are obviously social issues as well. So, if you have people who feel that their boss can always get in touch with them by email, that's not necessarily healthy. That if you can't kind of go a few hours without having quiet time, without thinking about these other things, that can certainly have a cost. So it's certainly not all beneficial to be able to use these techniques.
And
but
also,
it can be efficient.
And also, what about, the fact that different people have different sort of thought patterns, they have different levels of intelligence. I mean, I don't know whether that's, sort of a heretical thing to say now. But basically, nobody's the same. Their brains are not the same. They don't think about the same things. They don't operate the same way. Not everybody's as creative as everybody else. I mean, presumably there's a possibility that some people, having taken away the mundane aspects of what they have to think about on a daily basis, actually don't think about anything.
Yeah, well, and there are certainly big differences in the way that people use these cognitive resources. I don't know about thinking about nothing, but we have found, for instance, that what really influences whether people use these devices to aid their memory is how good they think their memory is. So some people actually have quite a bad memory, but they think it's good, so they don't bother setting any reminders. Other people actually, it's the other way around. And so one of the important things in this research is that it's the way that we think about our own memories and the way that how good we think we are that really influences how much we use these technologies. And sometimes that does not match reality. So it's important, if we're going to make the best use of these sorts of techniques, that we really understand how good we are at some things and how bad we are at others, so that we can really make the best use of it.
Okay, can you give us an overall figure, Doc, of how much of our brain, percentage-wise, is used to store memory? Because, for instance...
In your case, none, basically.
No, don't be flippant. And the doctor has given us his time. Don't you be, a fool. And what I'm saying is, Doc, for instance, none of us still understand why we have dreams, do we, and where that comes from in our head. So is there a lot of spare capacity still in the brain?
No, I wouldn't say spare capacity. So there are various theories about dreams and sleep, why we need that to help kind of consolidate our memories or reorganize our memories. I think it's a bit of a myth. There is this idea that we only use 10% of our brains, and it's not really true. The brain is a very costly organ. It uses a lot of energy, and so evolution would have got rid of it, if all that extra energy, if we were only using kind of a small percentage. So actually, we do use a lot of our brain. There's no such thing as kind of a part of the brain which does nothing.
Right.
But the brain is also a very adaptable organ. So even people who've had often quite large damage can adapt what they've got left, so that they're still able to be quite capable in their lives.
Yeah. So what about the way that children are taught nowadays in schools? Because presumably with the advent of different kinds of methods of
calculators.
Just the way that they're taught to revise things, the way that they're, my kids both at sort of secondary school and primary school, they're using more and more new technology. They're using iPads here and there, but not for everything. I mean, we're going to have to completely change the way children are educated, aren't we?
It already is changing. There are huge kind of changes in terms of the way that we are starting to use this kind of cognitive offloading to help, we hope, education. And the big question here is that if you're teaching a child to do something, and for instance they use calculators instead of learning times tables, that kind of thing, in some ways that can help, because the mental effort you spent on one thing can be reallocated to something else. But that's the big question. Are they reallocating the effort to something else, or are they just daydreaming or doing something less useful? So in some of the review paper that we've just recently published discussing this research, we point out that the big question is, are we kind of reusing our brains productively, or are we not? And that's still very much an open question when it comes to education.
Yeah, okay. Fascinating stuff. Dr. Gilbert, thank you very much
indeed. Very much indeed.
Dr. Sam Gilbert, the Institute of Cognitive Neuroscience. It's amazing, isn't it, the brain?
Incredible.
What you can think about, what you can talk
Incredible.
about. Yeah.
But I can tell you where the brain first got a release from routine in a second.
Okay, all right, we'll talk some more about that. Talking about brains, talking about science, talking about the Ice Age, talking about all manner of things on the show tonight, of course. Now, what were you going to tell us about the when the brain first suddenly exploded into action?
No.
By the way, have you seen that show's on, that one that you like? One of Us?
Yeah, I don't want to watch it because, of course...
We don't want to spoil it.
We don't want to spoil it.
When are you going to watch it later?
Well, it could be for Porky Vision tomorrow.
Oh, right.
It's a fascinating show.
All right.
No, what I was going to... you've misrepresented me here, as usual.
I have not
What
at
I
all.
was going to say is, I know the first time that the brain actually was taken over by a false image, and the moment that it started to react differently to the brain of Neanderthal man.
What?
Right, what I'm saying is this. The brain's main function for Neanderthal man was to tell you to go to sleep when it was dark.
And also to get food, presumably.
Well, the first thing was to tell you to go to sleep and get dark, because if you're too tired, you couldn't do anything.
Right.
And to wake up when it got light. Now, caveman used to live in caves with open fronts. They didn't have any doors.
They didn't have doors, no.
No, exactly.
No.
So
that came later.
Exactly.
After the Ice Age.
That's probably right.
Yeah.
So when you're lying in your cave and it's dark outside as well. However, when dawn breaks...
Yeah. Still dark in the cave.
No, it's not. This is the point. No, light filters into the cave.
It depends on the size of the cave.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, light filters...
Have you ever been to Cheddar Gorge, for example?
No.
When you go underneath into the caves of Cheddar Gorge. It's incredible.
No, I haven't done that, no.
Because the caves go for miles.
Yeah, okay, that's
great.
But
there's no light in there.
I've been to some huge caves in Mallorca, but that was on a boat.
Really?
Yeah, you'd sort of ride around on a boat. Do you know that the late, great George Harrison, who has this huge house, his widow still lives there, near Henley-on-Thames, in Oxfordshire.
Yeah.
And I can't remember quite the name
That's
of it now.
the one where they made that Martin Scorsese film, wasn't it? Which is fantastic. You must have seen that.
Which one?
It's about George Harrison. I think it's called All Things Must
Pass. Right. Yes, absolutely.
It was done on BBC Two as a two-parter,
yeah.
but I've actually got the DVD.
Have you? Yeah,
but I'm not giving it to you because you haven't given me the House of Cards back yet.
Oh, no, I haven't finished watching
When are
it
you going to
yet.
finish that?
Yeah, all right, in a minute. Anyway, the point of the story is, did you know that underneath that house, George had a huge network of caves?
Did he?
And he had boats that he'd take his guests
really?
on. Yeah,
Well, like underground lakes and everything.
Underground lakes and
Wow.
everything, yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's a massive estate.
Ah.
And in fact, do you remember All Things Must Pass?
Yeah.
His
Well,
triple...
that's the name of the film, yeah.
Yeah, triple... Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
But his triple... LP,
Yeah.
which got to number one in this
Yeah.
country and America,
Yeah.
at the same time as My Sweet Lord got to number one here in America.
Yeah.
An amazing success for
Yeah.
the third Beatles, so
Yeah.
to speak. That was taken in the grounds of...
Well, an awful lot of the...
Hall.
Yeah, something
Hall.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
A lot of the filming is about his gardening because he
course it
became
is, yeah, he loved it.
fascinated by
Oh,
gardening.
well, I mean, the picture on the front of the LP, he was dressed as a
Yeah.
garden gnome. But anyway, the point of the story
And he
is...
re-landscaped the entire
He
sort of
did.
gardens
Oh,
of
yeah,
the
he
place.
did. He had 26 gardeners on his payroll
Right.
one time. But anyway, the point of the story is,
Yeah.
so when dawn breaks, you've seen the famous expression in all the great movies, the westerns, haven't you?
What?
Okay, we move at daybreak. You know what I mean?
Well, I've never heard anyone say that.
They've always said that. John
We
Wayne
move at
always says
daybreak.
that, you
No,
know?
he doesn't. When did he say that?
He says it in loads of films.
We
he says,
move at daybreak.
okay, guys, get your heads down. And
No, they never said that either.
yeah, and we move at daybreak. First light. That's
First
right.
light.
Yeah, that's right. When they're driving all these like millions of cattle across America, okay, we move at first light. Now
Right.
that is because
Well, you don't want to work in the dark, do you?
no, you idiot. That is because in the Wild West, they didn't have any alarm clocks, right?
Really?
No.
No.
Well, they didn't. So
So what?
Well, so what I'm saying is the brain naturally wakes up when it's light.
Yeah.
That's nature's
Well,
alarm clock.
do you need an alarm clock? I bet you haven't got an alarm clock. Have you?
I've
Or
got
have you
s-
got a collection of them like the watches?
No,
Maybe you
I've
could bring
got,
one in.
I've got several alarm clocks.
Why?
Well, they're bedside clocks. So
Well,
I
how
can
many
tell
clocks
time.
have you got on the bedside table?
One on
Right.
each. No, one in each. Yeah,
One in each what?
in each home I live in. If you see what I mean.
You haven't got more than one clock on each bedside table, is what I'm saying.
No, I've only got the one. The problem is the new one I've got down in Gosport. I can't change the time on it. I've tried and I
Really?
just can't. It's an hour fast.
Is it like one of those clock radio things?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it's got digital clock and all that.
Right.
So I'm always waking up an hour wrong. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
So do you need an alarm clock, is what I'm asking you, to wake up?
No, I don't. No.
Because you hardly ever sleep, is my
Yeah,
point.
well, no, it's not that. It's just I wake up. I never sleep for more than 2 or 3 hours at a time.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point I'm trying to make
Yeah.
to you is, if you wouldn't keep
Yeah,
interrupting
well, hurry
me,
up. We're nearly out of time.
No, we're not. Is that nature's alarm clock
Yeah.
is lightness and darkness?
Yes.
Right.
For most people.
Yes. So what I'm saying is the first real natural ability of the brain was
Yeah.
overtaken
Uh-huh.
when two things happened. One, people started living in homes where somebody knocked on the door in the morning to wake them up, because that's unnatural.
Who did that?
Well, a servant or something, or your
Servants?
or somebody else in the house, or something
okay,
like that.
right.
And even more when we got into the 19th and 20th century, the advent of the alarm clock, because the alarm clock, of course, wakes you up unnaturally.
It does. How about the goblin teas made?
I had one of those.
Yeah, my parents had one of those.
Yeah, I had one of those.
Yeah.
And
I never fancied the idea of a thing that might have boiling water next to the bed.
no, never bothered me. It was great.
I
It was
stayed
a
in
great
hotels
invention.
in sort of 70s.
Oh,
where
they
had
always
those.
had them, didn't they? Yeah,
Shocking things.
And the trouser press. We've talked about
Yeah,
that
yeah,
before.
absolutely
you
right.
Get me put my trousers in somebody else's trouser press.
No,
Get lost.
no, I know you wouldn't want to do that. But in terms of alarms, I only ever use alarms if something is like almost life or death. Because
Yes.
normally I wake up before the alarm goes off. In fact, more often than not, I'm in a shower and my phone alarm's going off
And you forget about it.
because I forgot that
You've
it's
got
already.
to switch
but
it off,
But I've already woken up before the alarm
I'm
was
surprised
due
you
to
say
wake me
that
up.
because, I mean, without being unkind, you do often go to bed in a bladderated state.
I sometimes do. Well, it depends.
How you can wake up ahead of your alarm clock, and sometimes you go to bed until 3 or 4 in the morning,
Yeah.
is I find quite.
Well, I mean, for example,
Quite
today,
fascinating.
last night I went home and I had some food, watched a movie. By the time I went to bed, it was about 2:30, 2:45.
Yeah, I wouldn't start
Right.
that late, you see.
And I woke up at about 7:30.
7:30.
Had a quick look at Twitter, sent out a couple of tweets, and then I
Yes.
went back to sleep.
Yeah, okay,
And I
yeah.
woke up at 11:30.
Did you? Yes, it's late in the day for me. That I wouldn't sleep till
But
half
I
11
mean,
under
I
any
woke up feeling
circumstances.
very well rested
Yeah,
and felt like everything was great. Then I went and did my stuff that I had to do.
Yeah.
Saw those helicopters I told you about.
excellent.
I
Yeah,
got the dog food.
Yeah.
And all
yeah.
that.
I'm very pleased for you.
Yeah.
But you understand what I'm saying? There's a natural.
Yeah, but I don't know what you do all day. I mean, you
what do
were
you
up
mean?
at like 5:30, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You
Yes,
sent
that's
out
right,
a
yeah.
tweet saying, we're up and at 'em already,
Yes.
getting ready for the show tonight, which is approximately 13 hours later. So what do you do for 13 hours?
Lots.
What?
We have an awful lot to do. Well,
I know.
We've got a very busy schedule between now and Christmas.
Listen, I know we have.
And we are both involved in a lot of correspondence with things for live shows.
Still, 13 hours is a long
the
time,
production of our next video, for fixing up transport and shipping stuff up north to shows and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's all got to be done.
I know that.
And that, that takes time.
But 13, in the same period of those 13 hours, let me tell you what I did. I had, first of all, I woke up 2 hours later, and then I went back to sleep.
Right.
So I then slept for another 4 hours,
yes,
which eats up sort of about 6. So then I've got the 7 hours, say from midday until the show starts.
Yes.
So, I watched a bit of TV, cooked a little bit, but I mean, for me to use up 6 hours, it takes quite a long time.
Yeah, but
You've got to use up 13.
No, I have other interests in life than you do. I have other interests in
life.
Like
what?
Well, I invest in property.
Yeah.
Now, when you suddenly find out that you've got a situation on hand where there's, a pretty serious problem emerging in property, you have to deal with it. You have to get on with it and deal with it. And
it's true, I don't have a massive sprawling property empire.
Well, I haven't got a massive sprawling empire. I've just invested in property all my life. And when you find that the security locks on a particular property have gone and it's invalidated a number of people's insurance on their cars because the reason they're in there is because
you have to
get it fixed and get on with it and do all that kind of stuff. Other kind of things like, you have to be very careful of these days.
Right.
Because buy-to-let is so prevalent, people buy these places, right, and then they strip them out and they put new stuff in. But because the council rules on disposal of rubbish these days is
particularly if it's like professionally made rubbish,
exactly.
if you know what I mean.
Somebody's literally...
old kitchen or something.
An old kitchen, an old bathroom or something like that. People, if they can get away with it in the middle of the night, will dump that anywhere.
Really?
I mean, anywhere.
Really?
On your driveway or anything.
I must admit, I know a bit about this because there's down in Sussex, there's a local dump where you can take sort of household waste.
Yeah.
And they've got garden waste, they've got regular recycling, they've got, just ordinary, they've got electrical stuff, you have to put it specially over there.
Yes, that's right.
You're not allowed to resell it and all that sort of nonsense.
Yeah.
But what they do have is a sign saying no trade waste.
That's right.
So if you're in a building trade, you can't take anything there.
No, you have to pay.
So where do you take it?
You pay to take it to a special site.
Right.
But a lot of builders don't want to pay. And I'm not talking about reputable building companies, I'm talking about fly-by-night guys.
Well, they might not be able to. I mean, it's an expense, isn't it?
And I mean, for instance, you've got to keep your eye on this all the time. I had a fallout a couple of weeks ago when I went to one particular block where I had a property and I saw all this stuff in the driveway, And you can easily follow where it's coming from because there's just a trail of debris,
right?
And you
it's
go
not
up the
exactly,
stairs.
Clouseau type.
No, it's not Clouseau type, and the door's wide open. The guy's in there, so I just knocked on the door and I said, "Hi guys, how you doing? What do you want?" And I said, literally, It's
the same as that guy that used to bring the papers up in Chester.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I said, there's a lot of rubbish out there on the drive in the front. Is that out of this property? And they said, yeah. And I said, okay. I said, have you made provisions to move it? And they said, what's it going to do with you? I said, what's it going to do with me is I pay the service charges for this building. And I said, and it's not my responsibility to remove the rubbish in here. So I'll ask you again, a civilised question. Yeah. Have you made provisions to remove it? They said, yes, it's going off and it'll go away.
Good.
I said, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah.
And they said, yeah, well, what are you accusing us of, mate? And all that.
They'll probably leave something nasty outside your front door, won't they?
No, I don't think so.
You sure?
I don't know where I live. I didn't live in the same building.
Oh, I see.
So
what was it to do with you then, if you don't live there?
Well, because what's it got to do with me is that the value of a property goes down dramatically if somebody's
if you don't
using.
Live there.
I own property there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, if somebody's using the front driveway,
were you around collecting the rent?
No, it wasn't. No. I was just dealing with property. And if people,
you just like rowing people, don't you?
No, I don't. But if somebody leaves a pulled out kitchen or pulled out bathroom on the driveway of any property.
Yes.
I can tell you the value of that property is diminished by 10% immediately. And if anybody's got a property, a flat for sale in that block, they've had it. It's that's the way it is.
Blimey.
Yeah.
Shocking stuff.
Absolutely.
Well, there's your 13 hours. It takes a long time to sort all these problems out. We're nearly done here. We've got lots more to talk about, though, without very much time to do it. We are the Two Mikes. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, of course. Funnily enough, talking about people that you run into and that you don't necessarily like the look of, or they don't like the look of you. Yeah. Last night when we went for our little meeting after the show in a nearby hostelry, there was a very annoying guy there, wasn't there? I'm hoping he's not going to be there tonight. Yeah, we have to go for another meeting.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, we will have to get things sorted out.
We went into the bar, right, and he was sitting there on his own with a pint.
Yeah.
He'd obviously had a few.
That's right.
And
started making stupid
comments. He just was like, and they've always got like an array of possible
that's
drinks.
a good one.
And that's a good one. And they went, that one's off. Oh, I've drunk it all.
I've drunk it dry.
Oh, well, never mind. And he went, what do you mean, never mind? And he was obviously looking for a row.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And in other circumstances, I would have had a massive row with him, but I didn't feel like it.
Complete jerk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, I've come across an invention,
Yeah.
which honest to God, I'm amazed that nobody's ever done it before. Now, we've just been served a cup of tea, okay?
Well, you
nice.
have. I haven't got one.
Yeah.
Why haven't I got one?
Well, you didn't want one. You wanted some water.
Well, I drink water, yeah.
Okay,
I don't want to drink too much tea.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's all right. So
you drink 3 cups of tea during the show.
I have one at the top of each
I
hour.
drink 2.
And that keeps my
but that's why
cords
you don't
elastic.
sleep. It's too much caffeine.
No, it's not.
Yeah, keep you awake all night.
There's not much caffeine in tea.
There's more
Caffeine's mostly
caffeine in
coffee.
tea than there is in coffee.
Yeah, there is.
There is.
Anyway, can you just listen for a minute?
Go on then.
Now, the new invention, right, and this is going to make the inventor of this a fortune, is, like sometimes you get distracted and we're talking like that and you go back to your cup of tea and it's gone like cold or colder.
Yes.
Why has nobody until now invented a cup of tea where the cup retains the heat of the liquid inside it, the tea inside it?
Well, because everybody likes the heat at a different level, I suppose. And unless you had a cup that was actually completely and utterly, manually changeable.
You can. That's what you can do.
Well, is that what he's done?
Yeah. Yeah. Listen.
Because, I don't like tea to be too hot.
Yeah, a British inventor has come up with a product to end the disappointment of your tea going cold.
Right.
It's the first self-heating China mug.
Really?
And so, like modern day...
Does it come attached to some kind of heating...
on a saucer.
Plate?
The saucer is the heater.
Oh, right.
Right? So it says called the Glowstone, right? The smart mug, that's what they're calling it, right?
Smart mug, I like it.
The smart mug, that's right, yeah. Uses, that's an oxymoron, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
Smart mug.
It is.
Yeah. Uses, well, it is in your case anyway.
Yeah, very good.
Now, it uses 2 mobile phone batteries,
right,
which are in the base, which powers a tiny heating element.
Yeah.
Which will keep the drink at a constant temperature of 60 to 65 degrees centigrade.
Is that warm enough, though?
Yes, it is. That's
sure?
That's a premium. In Fahrenheit, it's 140 to 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah. Okay. Now the batteries.
So what is when you pour the boiling water out of the kettle?
Yes.
And say you're just making a cup of tea with a tea bag.
That's right.
What's that temperature then?
What do you mean?
Well, it's a simple question.
Well, I don't know.
Boiler? You don't know what water boils at?
When you first pour boiling water from a kettle into your cup, you can't drink it immediately because it burns your lips. It's too hot.
But that's
so
what I'm
you
saying.
leave it for a minute or two.
Yeah, but that's what I'm trying to establish.
Yeah, all right. Well, that would be about 75 or 80.
Wouldn't it be more like 100?
Could be 100.
Yeah.
Could be up to 100.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So it cools down to this drinkable temperature, okay?
Yeah.
Now then, the batteries...
I'm not certain it's the right temperature, that's all.
Well, I'm telling you it is, because these guys have done tests on it.
Calm down.
Now, the batteries are charged wirelessly from a special coaster, that is like the saucer, right?
Right.
And because they are sealed...
Sealed?
Sealed, yeah. The mug can even be put in a dishwasher.
Yeah.
So your mug and the coaster on which it sits.
Do you have to take the batteries out?
No, you don't. They're completely sealed and absolutely no problem at all.
That doesn't sound like a good idea
right?
to me.
Now then, this has been invented by a guy called Thomas.
Yeah.
Thomas Gostelow. His name's Gostelow.
Gostelow?
Yeah, Gostelow.
Okay.
He's from Manchester.
Is he?
Where so many inventions which have changed the world came from. The
spinning jenny.
Exactly, the Industrial Revolution.
Well, there's been quite a lot of time between the spinning jenny and the self-heating cup.
Yeah, well, nevertheless, there's been a few inventions since then, like, for instance, the Manchester Ship Canal and that sort of stuff, Well,
it wasn't really an invention, was it?
Well, it was a development, wasn't it? Right, the only one snag is this. It costs 69 quid.
69 quid?
Yeah.
Well, that's not out of this world,
I don't think it is either.
But, I mean, if you had to buy more than one of them, I suppose you wouldn't fancy it, would you?
Well, I would buy one if I thought it was that good to keep my tea at a constant temperature, wouldn't you?
No.
I think it's brilliant.
No.
I think it's a brilliant invention.
Well, no,
why do you think nobody's ever come across that before?
Well, I do wonder why it hasn't been thought of before, because it does seem fairly obvious as something... Maybe it's because they never had the technology.
Yep.
But my worry is, there were 2 things I worry about.
Right.
One, the mobile phone battery.
Yes.
Which, as you know, is quite a small thing.
Yeah.
How long does it last? Do you have to replace it?
We keep hearing at the moment about phones exploding as well, don't we?
Well, it was after you went banging on about how brilliant it was to have an Android phone.
Yes.
Which you didn't even know you had until I told you.
Yes.
And then the very next day, the Porky Jinx hit it, and they started blowing up.
It certainly did.
Are you going to think about getting a new phone now, then? Because yours is
no,
clearly
because
some kind of a fire hazard.
No, I mean, look, the phone that's blowing up is Samsung 7.
Yeah.
Mine's a Samsung 6.
Oh, is it?
So I hope that
So you think that's going to be all right then?
Well, I hope so.
Don't put it in your pocket, would be my suggestion.
Yeah, well, that would be...
put it in some kind of flame-proof carrier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
just in case it bursts into flames at the wrong time.
One of them bags that they put pizzas in. You know what I mean?
Something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think that's flame-proof.
Well, it's pretty heat-proof, isn't
it?
Yeah. Well, it keeps things